All right, hard yarners. That was, I know I keep saying this on every episode. That was my favourite episode fucking ever. That was so good. So many things to unpack in this episode. Went down a lot of avenues that a lot of our listeners are going to love. We were joined by Tyler Tolman. If you're watching at home, you can see behind him our incredible sponsors, alltradescover.com.au. All Trades Cover, they will cover you. They're covering me with liability insurance for this upcoming event that I'm running, Return to Zero. But if you're specifically if you're a tradie in the smaller business or a sole trader and you need some coverage, at least hit them up. They're going to give you a pretty competitive quote. Drop our name and that'll definitely help us because basically, I'm pretty sure, John, any bit of money he earns, he's going to throw towards us. So that's bloody awesome. This episode is also brought to you by Goat Tape. We spoke about breath, actually, in the power of breath within this episode. But Goat Tape, have you actually ever used any of these sorts of tapes?
I would love to try it.
I'll give you some. I've got a heap there.
Cool.
They come in all black, pink, and clear. And you chuck them on your nose. They open up the nasal cavities. You can get a lot more breath while you're sleeping.
I won't have to go like this when I'm doing breathwork in my nose.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're awesome. They definitely help you with recovery overnight. I wake up less sluggish in the morning when I'm wearing it. It's apparently, and I don't wear it, but I need to start wearing it because he's given me a heap. Is the mouth tape. The mouth tape actually promotes that nose breathing a lot more. But get around them, use the code word HARDYARN, you'll get 15% off, I think it is, or 10%. Anyway, hit them up and use that code word. Also, this episode is brought to you by Kahuna Golf. Do you play golf?
A little bit.
I might, depending on how long you're over here, I'll see if I can get you out for a round.
That'd be cool.
And but look good, feel good, play good. We got the hats, we got the shirts, shorts, and yeah, they're good. Jimmy's a local boy doing something special. So get around Kahuna Golf. Again, the code word HARDYARN, and you should get 15% off. And I think we're going to do a bit of a tournament soon just for fun and raise some money for a charity using Kahuna Golf. And then finally, Feed is a supplement. They use animal-based products. Apologies there, animal-based supplements that help with the bioavailability, help you absorb it. We've got the beef organ complex, liver complex, I think it is. We've got collagen, we've got honey, and they're very good. I think I look pretty nice in the morning as I wake up since I've been using the collagen, but get involved with Feed. Again, Hard Yarn 15. But that aside, we were joined by Tyler Tolman. Full circle moment, we mentioned it. I actually went and watched a seminar of yours, I think like 10 years ago. We were talking about natural health and the ways you can heal the body. But what do we talk about today? Because it was a lot bigger than just that.
Yeah, well, we mentioned a little bit of like ancient Egyptian stuff,
Yep.
How to be your own physician. We talked about the left-hand path, the right-hand path.
Mm-hmm.
Talked a little bit about Djedi.
Yes.
And how that played into ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and in the papyrus.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about Jesus. Talked about fasting and purification. Talked about consciousness. A lot of pieces that we kind of just touched on, which, like we said, we probably need a couple hours for each individual subject to really dig deep.
Yeah.
So, but it was fun. It was fun kind of rapping, having a conversation, getting to chat with you, and hopefully the listeners get some trains of thought started down the tracks.
Yes.
And obviously feeling free to ask more questions and have conversations and dig deeper into these things. They are, my passion for growth and having these conversations that lead to, more knowledge and wisdom and loving each other and accepting everybody's perspectives and growing through this thing called life.
100%. That's such a good breakdown of exactly what we talked about. Awesome episode, a lot of fun, and our listeners are going to get a lot out of this. Definitely opened up some rabbit holes. We need to get you back on to talk specific topics in depth, but that was great. That's a great tip, dipping of the toe. So without further ado, let's get hard.
Welcome to Hard Yarns Podcast.
I am fucking fat.
Anything Chris White says, please disregard it.
5D is actually a state of being. It's a unity consciousness.
That was Hard Yarns with me, Frankie Rose. So I'm going to throw it over to your co-host,
Daniel Djedi.
And Cameron Branch.
I would do this and then I'd gong.
Free in attendance for the millions listening at home. Let's get hard.
I just want to start by saying, and this is actually kind of cool, it's a bit of a full circle moment. Oh, it must have been 10 years ago, maybe. I'd started this journey of self-discovery and self-improvement, and I actually became vegetarian or vegan at the time. I had some gut issues, and like I think a lot of people, one of the biggest toe dips into this sort of change of life is health.
Yeah.
And I came to see one of your talks, and I was in the theatre and I watched, and I was very intrigued by each sort of fruit maybe resembles a certain part of the body that it can have an impact on, and the work of your father Don, and a lot of things in that sort of way. So it's actually kind of it's come full circle. The fact that now I'm chatting to you in person and you're part of this podcast, and it's something that I truly believe a lot of people are going to benefit from. So for those of the people at home that don't know, maybe explain who you are and what you sort of what you do.
Cool. So my name's Tyler Tolman, and as you mentioned, my father Don Tolman. They call him the Indiana Jones of whole food medicine because he wears his cowboy hat.
Yeah.
He's a bed out there. He's got a massive heart. He really cares about people. His mission is to really help people to live healthy, be happy. He wants to see families connecting and growing, and he's very different. He had a lot of gifts when he was younger. When he was a kid, he had like a photographic memory. He was very inspired by different things. I think he talked to the fish and the animals, and one of those types. Mm-hmm. So he was a very inspired individual. He went down the pathway of like becoming a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
So because of his photographic memory, he had like perfect grades, went to university, was going to become like, this surgeon guy who's going to make lots of money and live that life.
Yeah.
And then he had a major incident with his first daughter being jabbed and having a negative reaction, which caused mental retardation.
Yeah.
So that completely destroyed him, and it made him question everything about the whole medical system.
Yeah.
So he went down this massive rabbit hole of looking into vaccines and looking into the whole history of pharmaceuticals and where do they come from and why is everybody being jabbed and why aren't people asking questions? If this happened to me, surely it's got to happen to other people. So that was kind of his start, and then it sent him off on a journey of like self-discovery and like where does true health and true physicians come from? And he essentially says he went on a 17-year journey. And, there were some other motivations for this as well. You probably heard of Pulse.
Yeah.
So in the Old Testament of the Bible, Daniel, the prophet, which I'd say my dad's has a lot of similarities to this prophet guy. But it says that he was taken with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, out of they'd go to each town, city, whatever, and they'd bring all the young boys to bring them into an encampment and train them. That's how kings back then would rule, is they would train military, education, all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
But Daniel refused to eat the king's meat and the wine and all that sort of stuff, said, give us pulse to eat and water to drink.
Okay.
And it says in the Bible that after 3 years of only consuming pulse and drinking water, that Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego became 10 times more intelligent than everybody. So like Daniel specifically was having visions and dreams and like all this magic was happening to him.
Yeah.
And it says that they were also stronger than everybody else. So that was a story, and there's some deep reasoning, and of course we're going down this track.
We're already into it.
My father was raised by his mother, if you can imagine. I don't know what the kilograms are, but she was like 350 pounds.
Okay.
Massive woman.
Yeah.
And his dad was an alcoholic, hard alcohol, very abusive. And so my father at a very young age observed his father like abusive to his mother, mother completely overweight, abusive to the other kids, and he was kind of the baby. And then he also observed what they ate. And they had goats and chickens, and those were my dad's friends. Like imagine you're a kid and your dad's abusive and your mom's overweight and shit's a little crazy. So he was in the backyard playing with the chickens, playing with the goat. He made friends with the animals. But then every once in a while they go out and they cut the throat of the goat.
Yeah.
And they bleed it out and they start cutting it up. And you can imagine my dad, like, these are my friends.
Yeah.
The chickens. And so he was horrified watching the murder happen, because that's just how you did it back then.
Yeah.
And then he would sit there and watch as they had these like fat sandwiches with mayonnaise and the pure fat in these dead animals.
Yeah.
And he's looking around like, you're like huge and you're like angry and this is not a good environment. And maybe that's the reason, because what you're putting, and he was putting this together as, a young child.
Yeah.
So,
well, as someone who went down that path for 6 years, that's exactly how I felt. Like I looked at my dog. And I'd look at my dog and go, how would I feel? But yeah, so like that sort of assimilation with my pet and the relationship I've got with it now. Unfortunately, he just passed away. But I started to look at animals in that way, and I started to. I've since. Full disclosure, gone back to eating meat and gone back to that and having a healthy respect and sort of understanding of the sacrifice that the animal has. And I sort of almost say a prayer every time I eat, and in that regard. And I'm not sure if that's the right way or the wrong way. I'm trying to figure it out as I go along, like a lot of people are. But yeah, that was the same feeling I had when I went down, I think 6 years of vegetarian. That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah. And, just you saying that, it's like, so that's why I can't go back. Because I had a big experience. We could go into detail if you want.
Yeah, mate. I've got plenty of time.
Yeah. I had a big experience, and so I stopped. And I think it's best when you have a personal experience and something that speaks to you. It's like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Because then it's coming from an authentic, like, I didn't want to be vegetarian. I moved to live with my dad. My dad sat me down like, son, I think you should be vegetarian. I was just like, I think you should go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like I said that I was 16 years old. So he's like, okay, haha.
Yeah.
But, you're going to eat what we provide here at the house. If you want to eat meat, you can go down, you can go do whatever you want. Go eat meat whenever you want. But when you're here, you won't bring it back here.
Yep.
It's like, I won't allow meat in my house.
I mean,
that's cool.
Yeah, respecting the rules of the house. That's
Totally respect that.
Yep.
So I would sneak off and have chicken taco or my burger or whatever it was. But what I found is it was just easier to be at home. My dad always had like nuts and seeds out, what he calls kind of pulse, like a certain mix of nuts and seeds and dried fruits and different things. And there's bananas and there's fruits everywhere. And it was kind of like you just ate whenever you're hungry. Like, when you got 8 kids, it's like, you know what? If you're hungry, grab a banana, grab an apple. Like mom's not going to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner for freaking 8 kids or whatever. So it was just like you got used to eating fruits and veggies and nuts and seeds, and then there was always dinner provided at night, like one big, amazing vegetarian meal that everybody ate. And so I think the consistency of doing that, and my dad, of course, was trying to get me to be vegetarian. So he'd be like, oh, watch this video, the videos and the things. And I would look at it and I'd be like, oh, that's horrible and that's disgusting. But I think like a lot of us, we're a little bit desensitized. And it was just like, okay, I don't want to see that.
Yeah,
and I don't condone that, but I like meat, so whatever.
It's the plastic wrap. It's here. It's served as a.
I don't have
parcel.
to be the one that goes and does that.
Yeah, correct.
So I'm happy to eat it. Somebody else doing it.
Yeah.
I know it's not good. I don't really like it, but whatever. So be it. And of course, that went on for quite a while. But obviously, living in a vegetarian environment, I was vegetarian most of the time. I'd sneak off, and I'd love my chicken taco. I'd love my burger. I actually worked at this place called the Burger Barn. Yeah. And one day I went down, probably been a week since I had kind of had my little cheat. And it was this experience like I would be like, oh, yeah, I'm just getting that craving. I'm going to go down. It was like my special time to sit there and eat my burger by myself or whatever. Yeah. And I'm sitting in the corner eating this chicken taco. And I'm just, had this white sauce, absolutely delicious, like crispy chicken taco with all the things, sitting in the corner eating it. And it was just like all at once. It was like I could see the images that my dad had played. I could feel the greasiness. Yeah. And it was just like this overwhelming, like, oh my God, I felt sick. Yeah. And I felt the greasiness. And it was like I could feel death going down my throat.
Isn't it interesting when you change, when you remove the ignorance from it and you start to imagine the animal and you're like, oh, this feels, you do have to turn a blind eye.
I wasn't even trying to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just eating a chicken taco, minding my own business, loving it.
And I say this at the moment. I say this at the moment. Who's someone who's largely carnivore at points. No, I wouldn't say carnivore, but I'd be largely meat based and definitely avoiding processed foods and eating more fruits and vegetables and clean meals, basically. But yes, still very much so. If I'm sitting there eating the food and I'm imagining the animal, it does become
Yeah.
weird process.
I don't recommend that.
No, just
If you're going to eat it, I don't recommend thinking about the death.
No.
So this moment hit me. I felt absolutely sick through every cell of my body. I put it down, and I literally was like, I got to get out of here. And it had the kind of double doors. I kind of like busted the double door open. It was like this moment. And I was just like, oh my God, I thought I was going to puke out in the parking lot, but I didn't. I just busted out of the doors, and I was just like, oh my God. I'm like, what's going on? And then I was like, no. Seriously.
Yeah.
In that moment, I was like, oh shit.
I can never get rid of this.
I can't do that again.
Yeah.
It's like I just knew it. And so I kind of hung my head and went and found my dad, and I was like, Dad, I need to talk to you. And he like comes down, he's like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm vegetarian now.
Yeah.
And he celebrated. So the thing for me is, of course, I'm human. We're all human. It's just like, is this right?
Yeah.
You know, animal products, protein, all that. Like, can I be healthy? And you got to understand, I've been doing this for 30 years. Vegetarian since I was 16.
Yeah.
Right. So 29 years.
Yeah.
And every time it comes back where I'm just like, maybe I just need to get over myself. Just go eat a burger.
Yeah.
Eat a steak, have something on my own,
Healthy
and just see
reflection.
how I feel.
Yeah.
Because we all question, like, am I just a dickhead? Like, am I just,
Every fucking day.
right?
Yeah.
And honestly, I believe you know a good person because they're always questioning if they're good.
Yeah.
It's the ones that don't question if they're good that are just justifying why they're good all the time.
Oh,
they're not actually assessing what's really going on.
I think it was my partner or Delby. We had this exact conversation, and we were like, "Are we just propaganda? Like, are we just perpetuating certain lies and ideas?" And the fact that we were actually questioning was such a. I was like, no. Like, maybe we are at this point. Maybe we're saying something wrong, but it's healthy to sort of question.
Debate, healthy conversation. And if you're questioning what you're doing is good, that means you want to do the right thing.
Correct. Yeah.
And I always say, I reserve the right to be wrong. Right? I'm human. Don't take what I have to say as gospel. This is my opinion. This is my experience. And I reserve the right to be wrong, because if I always reserve the right to be wrong, that means I can change. And I tell people, hey, I told you, I was just giving you my opinion at the time. And this is why I've never written a book. I don't write books.
Because
of authorship.
We've talked about, who did we have on? We had someone on who wrote a book. Oh, and I actually questioned them because they've changed.
Yeah. And then they're like, all that stuff I wrote is now.
They look back, and
not what I actually believe.
But also they use it as a look, at the time, that's what I believed. It's a great way for him to go back and reflect on what they've done. And just like the podcast is for us, I can look back on some of our opinions and go, maybe we were wrong on that. Maybe we were right. I don't know, but
and
it's
this
good
is probably
to see.
like the race car or the rocket ship to truth, because of the questions you're asking and the opinions from all the people that you're getting, right? So it's like you're always going to be evolving radically because of the work that you're doing.
Yes. Well, I found it recently. Like, self-admittedly, I definitely bought into the Trump sort of stuff, and I'm
Q
still
and Trump and all that. Yeah.
and I'm still very aligned with specifically sides of it, like the RFK stuff that's going on, and I'm starting to see some things that concern me a little with the Trump administration. Just little things, not all of them, but sometimes I'm like, fuck, are we getting hoodwinked here? Like, are we being promised something and then they fucking slip something in? Like, I can see the Zionist sort of allegiance there a little bit, which is concerning to me. But then I'm seeing people like Tulsi Gabbard, who I very heavily believe in, and seeing people like RFK, who I really not idolize, but I love what they sort of support and push for.
Yeah.
It's sort of like...
And the exposure.
Yes.
So the awareness that's coming, whether RFK does anything or not, whether it gets done, and we're all sitting around like, okay, let's remove the fluoride, let's remove the toxicity, let's remove the poisons.
Yes.
Whether they do or not, they're exposing all of it. We have a world government health leader, now head of the FDA, now head of all of this, saying fluoride is poison and it's in our water.
Yeah, and people...
Hallelujah!
Finally, someone, Right. So that's... you raise a good point. So regardless of any action, at least it creates the awareness. Yeah.
There's a massive degree of attention on politics that hasn't been there. I haven't had any interest whatsoever. And for our whole lives, like, whatever, they're just... wanka. It's just like, well, it is what it is. Yeah. You can't let it get to you. And, deep state, this, that. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to park that and live and build my life and do something good, right?
Oh, mate,
That's
I
the
needed
way
to
it should
hear.
always be.
That's what I've needed to hear a lot lately because there is a healthy interest in politics at the moment. Specifically in Australia, we have a state election followed by a federal election shortly. And so I've been using the platform to voice the opinions of all different parties because I want a variety of it. Yeah. But it's fucking heavy on you. It becomes draining. And I said to my partner, I just want to go back to that. And this is why I'm so excited about today. Like, I'm fascinated with health. I'm fascinated with self-development. I'm even running my own conference in April, which is looking very good. Ticket sales are going very well. But returning to zero. And I'm obsessed with this idea of healing your traumas and healing your health before you begin the journey of self-development. Because if you're just taking those old self-limiting beliefs into the new version of you, you're just going to continue those self-destructive patterns. And this is the conversation I want to have for a while. I say that all full well knowing I have another politician coming on Monday.
All good, man.
But these are the ones I want to have. They're the ones I really want to get back to. Self.
So this is speaking my language. I think that you and I are the same. Why are we here? How can we be happy? How can we be healthy? How can we live a long life? How can I fulfill my purpose? What is my purpose? Right? And ultimately, I want to be a good human, leave a good mark, have my family, live as long as possible, and be an example to society, the best that I can. And what comes to my mind is I want to be Christ-like. Right?
Yeah.
And this is what it's going back to. And I find it very interesting because I've been, in fasting and health and detoxification and supporting people through removal of trauma. That's been my life's work. But the Jesus story, Christ story has also just kind of been, it's like, okay, there's the Bible, there's religion, there's Jesus, there's all this stuff, but it's a bit kind of like, don't want to go there, don't want to talk about that, because I don't want to be another born-again Christian freak that's just yelling down people's throats. It's almost like, and this might offend some people saying this, whatever, but it's almost like the Christian Jesus movement is like veganism.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see the parallels 100%.
It's just like, and look at this and look at that. And it's just like, whoa, dude. Okay.
Yeah. There seems to be positive aspects of both.
Of course.
But it's just once you start ramming it down people's throats, you get the resistance.
It's like shining light on the truth, but doing it in a way that's just kind of like, okay, like be a better approach.
Yeah. Well, instantly I noticed as soon as I said that I'm largely carnivore, you're not like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. Like, you're not pushing against it. You're just like, yeah, that's good.
Not at all.
Do what you got to do.
Obviously, it's working really well for many people.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And so anything that's working well for many people, shouldn't we at least be happy for those people? Symptoms going away, things happening, and it's just like, okay, well, we can start to ask questions. Why? And is it the right thing? Is it not the right thing? We can get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're speaking my language. Because the thing that you said specifically is like, I want to get to zero, which is like healing myself and removing the trauma and removing the programs, the negative programs, especially, and the things that have me addicted and suppressing and the aches and the pains or whatever the issues are going on. Once I'm in a really healthy place, then let's work on this process of ascension, growth, empowerment, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it takes me back because back in ancient Egypt, this is what I got into probably about 10 plus years ago. I've always been curious about ancient Egypt. Yeah. You ever had like a connection?
I think everyone's got that curiosity.
Not everyone,
but there's a lot of people fascination with even just the way they built structures and but their old ancient ways of healing and sound and so very fascinating area. Of which that's probably the most exciting part of having you on as well.
Yeah, so we should go there.
Yeah.
So my dad always just had like Egyptian artifacts and like papyrus and statues. And when I was a kid, I'd look at that and just be like, man, there's something about this that just speaks to my soul. I didn't even see the pyramids. I'm just the kind of stuff, the trinkets and whatnot. And so, I believe in this thing, like this acronym of ask and ye shall receive. Like ASK, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find it, knock and it shall be opened unto you.
Oh, I like that.
So I believe like when we're really like, I want to know this thing, and you're not just I want to know, you're like actively seeking and knocking at the door and trying to figure it out. I believe that when we're in that energy and that vibration, like in the Bible it says, "Ask and you shall receive."
Yeah.
We will. Eventually, it's revealed to us when we're like actually really seeking to discover that thing. So I've been seeking and asking and knocking on the freaking door since a very young age. And these things are overwhelmingly being revealed. Like, and I've never said this before, but like in visions and as a prophet, they're being revealed.
Yeah.
And the interesting piece is this morning,
Wow.
3:00 in the morning, I'm just being hit with visions of the highest truth, why we're here, what we're here to do, the Jesus story, how it all comes together. And for hours, like I'm like weeping, like crying and emotional and just like, oh my God, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
And even this morning, I'm like, man, I'm getting all this stuff and I'm going on a podcast. And like, am I supposed to be talking about this? Probably shouldn't talk about that.
Yeah. Well, mate, whatever. I mean, even last night I had the same thing about generally like I have not been remembering my dreams, and I think it's very good that recently I've stopped smoking, and because I think that was really suppressing a lot of my dream state and things, and you know, obviously quality sleep time as well.
Yeah.
But I've been remembering my dreams, and the dreams that were coming up last night, for example, were all presenting to me like fears that I could let go of, that I no longer need to hold on to anymore. And I knew that that's what it was. I woke up and I told my partner, and I was like, I need to let go of this, and this. And they presented themselves in dream form. And I don't know whether that's divine or whether it's the way your brain subconsciously processes things that you're trying to deal with in your life.
Any difference between the subconscious and divine.
Exactly. So I'm not going to try and understand why it's come up, but
yeah.
it has come up, and it was in my face. These are the things you need to let go of, the fear of. And they were out of my control, and they were worthless anyway. There was no base to those fears regardless. They're not real.
Well, clearly it's time.
Yeah. 100%.
So back in ancient Egypt, they had two schools, and they were represented by, you know, it's hard for me to talk about some of these things because a lot of times there's symbology associated to it.
Okay.
And as soon as you start talking about symbology, oh my God, Freemason, oh, Illuminati, you know what I mean? But it's like there was a pyramid. Okay, everybody's cool with that.
Yep.
The top of the pyramid's missing. We don't know what that was. On the back of the dollar bill, there's a pyramid with an all-seeing eye at the top, and there's 13 steps. If you ever get a dollar bill from the United States, and of course it was probably Freemasons, but Freemasons were the ones who took a lot of the records and the ancient knowledge and wisdom and put it into symbology. And of course, Freemasons, who knows, they could have gone completely evil, controlling the world, or there might be some good ones, there might be some bad ones. What comes to mind for me is, you know, you can say, oh, look at Christians and the way they shove this down people's throat, like Christianity's bad. And it's like, well, that's just the people within the religion. The people in the religion, there's going to be lots of really good people, and there's going to be some that are dickheads. Let's just be real, right?
Yeah, 100. Yep. Totally agree.
So take that Christianity and relate it to Freemasonry or Illuminati. And look, I don't know the details of these things. If they're worshiping Satan or praise, you know, if they're doing clearly stuff like that, blood ritual or whatever. But I think kind of everybody's doing that. Anyways, it's like, so they had a pyramid. They had the all-seeing eye. There's 13 steps to it. We can see this in all the symbology. But in the school, there was a left-hand path and a right-hand path. And if you go to any temple in Egypt, and I take groups there, taking a group there in September, in front of every temple.
How do I get involved in that, please?
Oh, dude, it'll blow your mind. And we do an 8-day program specifically about the history and the mystery and the truth of what was really going on there.
Yeah.
And then we go there and see it and then be like, so then we ask the Egyptologist, can you explain that? And they try to give you some BS, and everybody knows it's BS, right?
Okay.
And if you question it at all, it becomes like, oh, well, we don't really know.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh, well, what about what I said? And then people are just like, it's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is my knowledge, because I found a guy by the name of Dr. Ramses Salim.
Okay.
So again, ask, seek, knock, wanting to know, reading, looking into it. And one day this woman gives me this book. It's called Ancient Egyptian Natural Medicine. Thick book. It's got a big like caduceus, which is the symbol we see at the hospital. The caduceus wand of Hermes on it. It's got all these Egyptian symbols, and I'm like, wow, this looks like an amazing book. And what do? Stick it on the shelf.
Yeah.
So I got this amazing book with Egyptian stuff sitting on the shelf, probably a year, maybe 2 years. I'm running a fasting program in Bali, and everybody's fasting. Every morning I get all my books out. People grab a book, you do an oil pull, put some oil in your mouth, swish it around.
Yeah.
Everybody's waking up. You got like 30, 40 people fasting in this big room. Mm-hmm. We're all just kind of like, and I'm like, oh, I'll grab that book. So it's got the caduceus. I open it up and I start reading it. And it's just like, those moments where it's just
the
like,
aha moment. Where
oh
you're like,
my God. And like one page,
Yeah.
I just opened it to a random page and I'm reading it. I'm like, oh my God.
it's been here.
These are questions I've been asking my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, what am I? What is a soul?
Yeah.
Where do we come from? What are we? And it was saying it as clear as day. And I'm just like, holy shit. And I'd read some more and I'm like, oh my God. And it would say some more. And I'm like, all from one page. I'm like, I need to read this book.
Yeah. I love that.
So it spoke to me when it was ready.
Yes. When you're ready.
Yeah.
That's the key.
It was finally the time. I opened it up. I get it. It's like, okay, I can't just read this now. I got a program I'm running. So once the program finished, then I read pretty much cover to cover. This is a thick book, and it's the medical health history. So it's ancient Egyptian natural medicine.
And how do they, is this like transcribed, or is this an old
So
ancient book?
Dr. Ramsey Salim was born into being like the original pyramid priest guardian family that was initiated into being that keeper of wisdom through the oral tradition.
Yeah.
Very few people, because back when they were invaded, by the Arabs and everybody had their heads cut off.
Yeah.
Back then they said, well, you can keep your religion if you pay this massive tax, or you can become Muslim and you don't have to pay the tax.
And so this was kept in secret.
So only the richest families that could afford to pay the tax could stay and practice their religion and the truth of their history. Oh, wow. So but eventually it started to become contentious. So they had to go fully underground, and everything was lost. The language was lost, all of it.
Wow.
This guy speaks the language. He can read it fluently, and he knows the true history back to the first Pharaoh.
The first, which comes to our clip with Boris, who the one that you've commented on, actually, that one was okay, but we put it up again a few months later, and I just made a few tweaks to the music and whatnot, and it went bonkers viral. Millions.
What are you talking
millions.
about? A papyrus?
Sorry, Boris Walter, he took someone back through a past life regression and, unintentionally.
Was speaking a bit.
Speaking what was called the first language, almost Aramaic, I think, was potentially the...
So the first language was called the Medu Netru.
Okay.
Medu Netru means the language of nature.
Oh,
okay. So when we look at hieroglyphs, you see birds, you see feathers, you see all these natural things. That's because it's the language of nature. It's the language of God.
I need to connect you with Boris. This is
So I think I watched that where he said he dropped in. He all of a sudden started speaking it because it sounded very familiar.
Yes.
We could take, if we just slowed it down, we could actually write it out in hieroglyphs and then translate it.
Wow.
Like legitimately.
Okay.
With a proper,
Okay. I'll definitely...
dictionary.
We'll hook you and Boris
which
up.
I have
that'll
all
be,
these things.
That will be incredible.
So I believe that's the original language, and there's reasons why it's so structured and beautiful and perfect.
Yeah.
When we look at it, it's just like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And it was only the highest of high, well, not the only, but it took a lot of work, a lot of education to become a scribe. And all of that has really, the language of that's come to the forefront in a lot of what we say and do. For example, like medicine, medicine, where does that come from? Medu, remember I said Medu Netru is the language of nature. Medu Sunu was the physician. So Medu Sunu is the words of the physician. Medu Sunu is where we get medicine. The words of a physician is like medicine.
Yeah.
Because the physician can look at you, he can read your face, he can read your eyes, he can read your nails, he can read your posture, the tonality of your voice. Everything speaks. It's the language of everything that's coming through from you that displays your goodness, your faults, all of it. and we can see deficiencies. We can see chronic conditions. You know, you've heard of iridology, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, like medicunu, medicine is the words of the physician, because the physician has been trained so much that they can look at you and have a conversation and know what's going on, ask you to look at your nails, look at your tongue, look in your eyes, and be like, this is exactly what's going on. Then what he has to say is medicine, because he can tell you exactly what you need to do to heal yourself.
And that idea of healing yourself, providing people with the tools to be able to do it themselves with the foods that they eat, or to reduce or avoid, that is what I think is, one, being suppressed because it doesn't benefit the pharmaceutical industry, and I guess there's fear in that there are hucksters, there are people who, of course, they're giving poor information and false information,
and hopefully from the right place in their heart.
Well,
but a lot of people, I think, because a lot of people are just misinformed, they don't know. A lot of people get caught up. Some people maybe just have money interests, so they want you to do certain things. But I think we all suspect that the sicker we are, the more money and power certain individuals have. Yeah. And I think that's kind of...
they're in the industry of sickness, so they don't benefit from making people not sick.
So essentially, everything that has been good has been turned upside down, and now we see this original caduceus, which was a symbol of ascension, and the energetics of the body, turned into a symbol where they just poison people, essentially.
And just going back to, that was a great little tangent, going back to the left and the right way that you were getting at.
So at every single temple, you're going to see a guy standing there holding on to golden bars with a crown, because he represents the highest, the pharaoh, and his left foot forward.
Still.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Every temple, every statue where they're standing, you're going to see the left foot forward and the right foot back, and this is the pathway of the heart. Okay? This is the pathway of the heart. First, like you were saying, we need to heal ourselves. We need to purify ourselves. There's a specific process of ascension. Starts with waking up. Number one is you wake up. This is on a pyramid. This is what I was taught by Dr. Ramsey Salim. This is what all of the original population at a time when we were going through a massive phase of enlightenment, what they were all taught. First, you have to wake up, because we come into this world through a river of forgetfulness. So we've all forgotten who we are, what we are, where we come from. We don't know anything. Blank slate when you get here. Good place to start from. But we need good foundations, right? So in order to wake up, my teacher said there's three ways. One way is to get into the presence of a master, because a master holds the energy and has been through the process. Just their energy will wake you up. And of course, what they tell you and share with you, you take that on and it wakes you up. That's way number one. Number two is called the physical culture. The physical culture today could be anybody who's like super committed to the physical body. So if you become an athlete, you're doing yoga, breath work, strength training, whatever it is, if you're committed to the physical, we can wake up through the physical. It's like this awakening, like where we're just more on and we're starting to see the body differently and the world differently from a more awakened state. And in that awakened state, you can identify, artificial color, artificial sweetener, antibiotics in these foods and the way these things are happening. Like, I really want to get clean and healthier. So either presence of a master, physical culture, or through trauma and disaster. Three ways. So everybody will wake up at some point. It's going to happen, even if it's the Great Awakening when you pass. Right? But trauma. So you get in a car accident, your dog dies, your wife dies, major tragedy. We have this massive awakening, and typically what will happen is you're like, oh my God, like it brings you back to like what's actually important.
Mine was my housemate died in a car accident, and I went almost instantly to like, what's life about? What is it? As a young man, I would have been 25 maybe.
So that's an awakening.
Power of Now, I got that, read that, and life had changed. The awakening process had begun. I started saying, why am I sick? What are these gut problems? Everything.
So the next step.
And then I came to see you.
The next step is purification.
It's been a long process.
So there's awakening. And imagine if you were a kid and they taught you this. Imagine if you went to school and they're like, hey, here's the things you can do to wake up. And if you're in the presence of a master consistently and you're doing the physical culture, you'll wake up. Then you step into the process of purification. If you don't know these things, then you're probably not doing them.
Yeah.
And then eventually there will be trauma is the correction to try to get you through the process in this life. So the next step is purification. And the problem here is, like, if you're just doing the physical, let's say a sports athlete, they are an awakened state.
Yeah.
But if they don't know the next step, there can be this like awakening and da-da-da-da-da-da, and then you kind of fall back asleep.
Well, this is what I was in. I was in that stage. I was a semi-professional athlete playing in a football team, and my time had finished. Like, it was my last season. I didn't know what I was going to be doing after that. And then, housemate died. Fucking bang. Shock to the system. Decided to play one more season to honour his name. But after that, it's interesting how that all plays out. It's taken a long time to process all that.
I bet.
A lot of ups and downs, a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
Fucking a lot of mistakes. But those mistakes often reflect the things that you were trying to...
There's growth in it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's growth in it. It's like, it's like a heartbeat. It's like anything in life. Like,
it's a very good way to describe the last 12
heartbeat
years.
of life.
Yes. Highs, you're like, oh no, I've found it.
good.
I'm good. No. So
and let's just hope somehow the heartbeat is like on a mountain going
I hope
upwards.
so. I really hope
Not
this is
this
it.
way.
Yes.
So purification's the next step. And then going through the purification when we get it right, because, there've been sages, immortals, whatever you want to call them, teachers, people, Jesus, Muhammad, Gandhi, like whoever you want to call these people, Lahiri Mahashai, Paramahansa Yogananda, Eckhart, like whoever. It's been all these individuals throughout thousands of years that through the process of doing it, figured it out and wrote it down and taught it to others to make it easier. Right? That's the whole point.
It's like tapping into the Christ consciousness.
What's already there. Tapping into the Christ consciousness. And that's the thing is when these individuals come, and let's just take Jesus, for example, he came to fulfill something. And through that fulfillment, he changed the possibilities that are available for us. And he said, I am the way. I am the life. But I am the way means it's a way, it's a process.
And this is why when they talk about, and I could be wrong, but my opinion and view on the return of Christ is not the return of the actual physical embodiment of Christ. It is the way of Christ.
The way.
Which is...
This is the way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I don't get too I don't get too tied up in religion in itself.
Yep.
But, his teachings and the teachings of Buddha and people who got it, they understood it and wrote it down.
Yep.
Read it like philosophers like Alan Watts who delve deeply into these sorts of ideas to try to understand it.
Yeah.
All in the end, realizing the only way to understand it all is to just let go and surrender.
Let go, allow, and then do. We need to know the way.
Yeah.
So my father said there's a Greek phrase and aphorism of growth. This also goes back to the ancient Egyptian. They just have a different way of saying it, called gnosis, praxis, intellicus. To know, to do, to become. We need, when you're in a position to receive gnosis. What is gnosis? Inner knowing. Okay? So if I say something to you, hey, this thing, and you're just like, oh, I know that's true.
Yeah, your gut.
That's great.
Gut intuition, your intuitive.
That's the gnosis. That's knowledge. But it's worthless unless you take that and then action it. It becomes the way.
Even being able to hear it. Like, we're so cluttered. We have so many things.
This is the thing. It's the gnosis, you feel it. That's what we have to listen to.
Yeah.
I could sit here and rattle off facts and say things that are cool and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, I know I should drink more water. I know I need a certain amount of sunshine. I know I should eat some fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's heady.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the things when I say it, it hits you and you're just like, oh man, that's true.
Yeah.
Those are the things we need to be very clear about because that's your inner knowing saying, hey, listen up. Like smack in the face, like, hey, this is for you. You're feeling it, right?
And I feel like if you don't listen, it gets violent.
Well, you lose it.
Yeah.
Right? And violated. It's a tragedy to the universe that we didn't get the tap and move forward, right?
Well, I truly believe that you're still going to hear it. It's just not going to be as an easy...
Yeah.
It's not going to be that
well,
nice.
it might be the trauma instead of just listening to the master.
Correct, yeah. The what did my a good friend of mine, Mandy Nelson, she's been on the podcast before. I think she called it the feather, the brick, the truck.
And the Mack truck.
Yeah, so just it's going to eventually just throw it in your face.
Yeah, and this is the truth. Like, God is always speaking to us. God is just a word that a lot of people struggle with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we're jumping around a lot here. Hopefully we can keep some of these tracks.
Yeah, it's all good.
But I like to ask the question, what is God? And the answer is in the question. God is. What is God? God is. And it's the only thing that is. So think about this. We've heard, or if you haven't heard, you could contemplate, what is God? God is omnipotent. Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
God is omnipresent. Have you ever heard that? What does that mean? That means that God is everything. Everything is God.
And God is just the word that represents that.
Yes. Universe. Some people like universal intelligence, the universe.
Source.
The one spin, the source, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But let's just say God is everything. That means that, everything is. There is nothing that is not God. And I believe good is called good because it's related to God. It's just adding an extra O.
Well, yeah, whatever you want to call it, it all came from one little bit. Even if you believe in the Big Bang style theory, that's from one little bit has come everything. So whatever that is, call it God, call it universe, call it source.
Let's say God is good, right?
Yep.
That means everything's good. That means that God is love, God is good, God is beauty, God's all these amazing things. So where does hate come from? Where does evil come from? Where do all these other things come from?
Yeah.
I believe the split that's actually creating hate, destruction, evil, whatever, darkness, whatever you want to call it, is just the judgment.
And the resistance.
It's like I'm judging this thing that's also God.
Yeah.
But because I don't understand it and I'm judging it, it creates friction. It's almost like that's what's creating the duality, is my own thought process around it and judging it harshly. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to have to go through some serious struggle, and that thing's probably going to be in my face. And then I'm judging it all the time until I learn to love it.
And because that's often been the issue I've faced with talking to people about God, is that word God, the relation with religion as opposed to this everything that is. How do we sort of, well, I guess we don't have to bridge that gap. When they're ready, they're ready.
Yeah, but, totally.
It's hard
to talk
to
about God, people shut off.
Yeah.
If you say maybe divine intelligence,
Yeah.
people are a little bit more open to it.
Yeah, because there's that
Which is
modern,
probably better.
There's that modern spirituality sort of trend. It is a trend, and I would have been in that, but I think trends are there for a reason. And
Yes, and I've followed that not really knowingly for a long time, just because of the energy of saying God.
Yeah, it feels, and like I'll call it whatever. It just is. But it's a very touchy subject to talk to people about, because you're right. When you say the word God, people do shut off, but we do go on tangents. And that's always good. I love these chats. But
So back to the left-hand path.
left-hand path.
It was a process. The left-hand path was becoming a physician. It was learning to know thyself. The ultimate physician knows thyself. And what I mean by that is, like, I know where my liver is and what it does. I know where my heart is and what it does. I know my eyes, like the organization of my body. If I know myself, I'll know everything else. And, there's basic principles of health. I call them the 7 principles of health. But then there's also 7 universal divine principles that exist. Okay. Kind of like if I have this thing and I'm like, you see that? That's a principle.
Yeah.
That's a law.
Yeah.
That law is called gravity. That's what we call it. Okay. And there's all kinds of ways to talk about it and think about it. But laws are these universal principles that if you don't know the universal laws and principles, then you don't know yourself really, and you don't really know what's going on. Like, imagine if you had a set of rules to play a game, then you can figure it out the game based on the rules and maybe get really good at the game. But if you don't know the basic set of rules in this game called life, then you might be going through life and break some of these things. And whenever you break a law, there's going to be repercussions. Yeah. We call it karma. We call it slap in the face, the Mack truck.
Yeah.
So is it important to learn these things? And back in ancient Egypt, they had the left-hand path, which was knowing thyself, learning all about the human body going through the process of really waking up, knowing yourself, going through purification, going through these very specific practices of like activating the self so that we're really on physically, mentally, emotionally. And once we got there, then we'd go on this other pathway that was considered the warrior path. So it's like the feminine and the masculine. The left-hand path is the feminine. It's where we all need to start. Make sure your heart's in the right place. Get all this growth and learning and purification, education, become a priest, work at the temple, work in the fields, be a good human. And if and when you are, feeling called to do more, then you'd come into this pathway called the warrior magician pathway. This was the pathway. This is the crazy piece. This was called the pathway to become a Jedi. This is in the papyrus.
So Djedi was around far longer than. Is that taken from this wisdom?
Taken from the Egyptian.
Wow.
And okay, whether it was taken or not,
let's
just back up.
Yeah.
That's what the highest order of these warrior magicians were called the Jedi.
Wow.
And they had a symbol for it. Okay, and the symbol is like this 4-pronged piece. I've got this ankh that I'm wearing. Mm-hmm. So they had the ankh. They had this big scepter called the Waz scepter, or the scepter of power.
Yeah.
The ankh represents the left-hand path of the physician teacher. That's what I've been doing my whole life. Health, knowing myself, studying anatomy and physiology, helping people to heal, guiding through fasting, detoxification, trauma release, all this sort of stuff. Yeah. Trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, what's the best.
Yeah.
Physician side. And then I've hit a point, like I said, about 10 years ago, where it was time to move into this Jedi pathway, the right-hand path, and that was represented by the scepter of power. And then, so it's like Ankh, key of life, scepter of power, learn the martial arts, learn the physical culture, and then start to practice the techniques that bring about this kind of like higher wisdom and unlocking our senses. And I want to go down the senses. But for the ultimate experience, because basically it's like a triangle. It's the left-hand path, the right-hand path, but we're working towards the center at the top of the pyramid to the all-seeing eye, which is essentially the ultimate enlightened path of becoming a Jedi. And they have this symbol. So the symbol for the Jedi, we could, if we had ability to pull it up, it's basically 4 pieces like this. Yep. It's like imagine a staff with these kind of like 4 plates on it.
Okay.
And the plates are gold.
Yep.
And so they had that. And the first pharaoh, all the way back, way longer than anybody's ever been told, his name was Ptah. And he had his wife was Sekhmet. This is where Sekhem healing comes from. You probably heard of like Sekhem energy or something like this.
No, I haven't heard of that.
It's just like electromagnetic energy. And she's the mother of Isis. Okay. So we have like Ptah, Osiris. Okay. Osiris is the one that's more known about.
Yes. Yep.
And he, and I don't want to go too deep and get confused, but there's Sekhmet and Isis, and there's Ptah and Osiris. And so you have Isis and Osiris. Let's just say that. Yeah. And Isis really was bringing in the medical and the learning and the healing arts, the Ankh, the key of life. And if you look at the key of life, it almost resembles like a penis and a womb.
It's almost... Well, yeah, because for people at home that are listening, it's the cross that almost has the spoon sort of look at the top.
Yeah,
the circle.
So it's like the Christian cross, but instead of the straight part, it's like a womb at the top.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's the crossing between the penis and the womb where all life happens.
Yeah.
Right. And it's called the key of life. Obviously, that is the key of life.
Yeah.
Penis going into the womb, creating new life, and there's a cross there. And it's also showing that this is the process of regeneration. So, you've probably heard of Tantra and all these systems for thousands of years. They taught a process that you could use the sexual practice as a way to regenerate ourselves if you understand how it all works, how to work with it. So I didn't mean to go down that path. That's kind of the feminine path. We have the masculine path. And ultimately culminating into this Jedi experience. The interesting thing that I've found is under one of the temples. So I take people to this place called Dendara, absolutely beautiful temple. First time I ever went there, everybody's going up to see what's called the Dendara Zodiac. And that's at the top of this temple where all the stairs leading to the top look like they've been melted in the center. There's lots of speculation as to what was going on. That looks like it melted all these steps. Amazing hieroglyphs and windows going up. The most magical place you can imagine. At the top, they've got this huge zodiac. And of course, they say, oh, this was from the Greeks and blah, blah, blah. But actually, that's a replication that's been happening for thousands years. The Egyptians had the full zodiac mapped out long time ago.
Which is incredible to even fathom.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about as above, so below,
Yep.
one of the universal principles, and that's the 12 signs of the zodiac above, actually 13.
Yes.
Remember 13 steps on the pyramid. We got 12 disciples in Christ, which are the 13. Like, we see this number, but they try to always remove the 13.
Yes.
Make it 12 plus 1, or you go to a hotel and the 13th floor is missing.
Like, it makes sense for there to be 13 months in the year and have that one extra day at the end.
Yeah, exactly. 28 days
Yes.
times 13.
Yep.
13 moon cycles, called a month.
Yeah.
You know, you look at a turtle shell.
Yeah.
A turtle shell has exactly 13 spots in the middle and 28 spots around it.
You're kidding.
It's the keeper of time.
Oh, my Lord.
So when we go back to the ancient Egyptian, they looked at the animals. Remember, it's the language of nature. And they gained wisdom from the animals because animals had different gifts and pieces to share. That's a whole nother podcast, which we could get into if you want to.
Yeah, definitely.
But let's see if I can track where we're at here. So this symbol, the Djed pillar, when you look at the pyramid, if you could cut the pyramid in half and look at it, everybody's really excited about what's called the King's Chamber at the top.
Yep.
That was actually called the Sekhem Chamber.
Okay.
That's what the ancients called it. And Sekhem refers to the electromagnetic energy of the body. The electromagnetic energy of the body all resonates mostly from the heart. It creates this big electromagnetic field more than anything else. And the 3 chambers within the pyramid were actually representative of the 3 different parts of the body, but they were activation chambers. And on top of the King's Chamber, nobody really talks about this, there's 4 massive granite slabs stacked like this Djed pillar. Okay?
Okay.
And what this Djed pillar does is it creates this vortex of energy like an electromagnetic amplifier that does something. Let's just start there. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, something was invented not too long ago, or at least it was revealed not too long ago, called a quantum computer. Have you ever heard of quantum computer?
Yes. Yeah.
Have you ever looked it up?
And the recent, they've created this chip that's almost in another realm of of existence.
So quantum works on like qubits,
Yes.
like bits, and it works differently to regular computer chips. And if you ever talk to like a quantum physicist, you'll think that he's talking about something out of Star Wars or the Jedi.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about this thing maybe going into other dimensions. Like they're like, we just ask it a question and we're not sure how, because it would take our computers, 10,000 years to come up with an answer, and it just comes back in 17 seconds and says, oh, this is the answer.
Yeah.
Where's it getting the answer? And they're saying there's, the quantum physicists, and this is quite a while that I really researched this, could be updated.
Yeah.
But they're saying like there's at least 11 other dimensions that we know about.
Yes.
And the quantum computer somehow is going into these other dimensions, gathering information and bringing it back.
And that in itself, because I've known that stat that there's 12 dimensions of reality that they understand exist.
There you go. So 12.
That in itself.
There's this 12, probably a misty 13th, right?
Yeah, probably.
Or maybe we are the 13th.
I will potentially, or maybe you escape, and that is the 13th. But yes, that 12 dimensions that we understand exist from a scientific level is fucking
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So get this. If you Google quantum computer, it's this computer they built. It looks like it's hanging from the ceiling, and it's 4 plates.
Oh, you're kidding.
With gold.
And it replicates what is seen in the...
It's a Djed pillar. Oh. And this Djed pillar they had back in ancient Egypt, and it was one of the highest symbols of the Jedi. And so what I've been taught is, in fact, the Ankh, the Waz scepter, and the Djed pillar all exist inside of us.
And that feels by design.
Yeah, that's what we are. Okay, so they're tools and things inside of us, as within, so without. As we grow and as we go through this process of knowing ourselves and ascension or whatever, we just start to make the internal technology externally to work with it. Because as within, so without, when, eventually we just, oh, hey, I created this thing. And it works better like this. And then you put it together like this, and it's an exact reflection of what's actually just going on inside.
And then if we realize we've had this ability to do it ourselves all along.
Yes. And making the tools externally, though, then we can use those tools to amplify those internal things into our reality. Okay, because there's no doubt about it in my mind that these individuals that were high degree, ascended masters, Jedi, whatever you want to call them, they were making and using these tools for like keys to access interdimensional spaces and travel through, some of the things. They had to physically build some of these things in order to get inside these things and potentially go places, whatever. And, we haven't even really gone down that pathway of conversation. But there's some big pieces here that I think I wanted to talk about, as far as the essence. And this is what came through this morning. I'll just say it. What came through me this morning is the reason why Christ came.
Well, you're going to have no judgment from here, and I don't think any listeners, because we're all fascinated.
Well, I think that everybody's already been told and everybody knows. They just don't get it.
No, you could. Sometimes I've spoken to Delby about this before on the pod and previous guests. Sometimes you get that temporary knowing, an instantaneous moment of like, I get everything,
Pure
and then
intelligence,
and then it's gone.
Yeah,
like within an instant, you're like, oh, everything right now makes sense. Now hold on to it, and it's gone. So is this what you're in reference to?
Yeah, and my father said there's a word for this. It's called furor luquendi. And there's one called furor scrubendi, and it means a rage of speech. So it happens to some people when you're just kind of talking and you're vibing, and all of a sudden you say something that you didn't even know you knew. Yeah. It just comes out.
Yeah, flow state.
And you're like, and for some of us, like, I just said something. I don't even know if that's true. Maybe I should go research this. You know what I mean? But it just comes out.
Yeah.
And we should trust that because it's a rage of speech. It's like a gift. We've been given these gifts, and some people are like orators. They're the ones that are like prophets, where they just speak truth and they're just channeling. And of course, now we have people today that's like, oh, I'm a channel for this thing and that thing. And furor scrubendi, that's a gift that my father had that used to be called the gift of Aaron. And it's when you sit down and you're just in like this pure stream of intelligence, you start writing. Yeah. My father used to sit at his desk, and he had a specific process he had to go through. Not sure where he discovered it, but he did the awakening and the purification and activation. He went through all these processes, 40-day water fast, 5 years in a row on top of a mountain like Moses did,
Oh, my Lord.
So he saw the Ascended Masters, he communicated with them, and he had these gifts, but he would sit down and sit there and write pages and pages. No idea what he's writing. And then he'd go back and he would actually clean it up and translate what he had just written and put it out into books, most of which he never published. He just like would put these in his safe and hide it.
Throughout my last, so all the listeners know, and I did this on the podcast. I did a mushroom trip.
Yep.
And not like let's go have
like
fun.
5 grams
like,
worth, or
it was a hero dose. It was only 3.3 grams, but it was enough to really send me
going
to wherever I needed to go. And anyway, that triggered a mass change within my life. It's definitely something, healed a lot of trauma. It was a very quick fix on a few things, but it still sent me down the path of self-discovery for the last year, and I decided to start journaling every single day. And I finished a journal on last week.
Wow.
And I'd been journaling, not every single day, but when it felt right. And I'd meditate, and then I'd sort of almost write back what I'd learned within my meditation or things that I'd communicated. And I am very close to going back and reading. I find it hard to read because some of the times you're like, oh, I was not there yet. I was still deep in some trauma or whatever. But I do want to go back, clean it up, and then sort of read back some of these lessons back to myself.
Yeah, man.
Because some of them I couldn't explain how I had knowledge of that. And I've said that to Delby, and he's like, you just, you're tapping into a clear, in his logical mind, he was like, you're just tapping into that clear thought and you're understanding how you're feeling right then and there, which potentially it could be. But also part of me has always believed that no, I was tapping into
Quantum.
Whatever.
Your Djed pillar was activated.
Yeah. And it's only after a deep meditation of which I get into this state, and I have no control over when it hits me. But I almost feel like I'm just about to fall asleep.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm just bang, I'm in.
There.
Yeah.
And then you're writing it down when you come out.
Yeah.
Because you remember.
So I vocalize it.
Wow.
So I start speaking.
Okay.
And then
do you have a recorder?
No, I never record.
Come on,
I
man.
should, yeah.
Seriously.
It's only been done once where I've been recorded by Boris, and he put me into a hypnotic state and I spoke.
Man, I highly recommend, if you ever just kind of maybe even going to bed at night, or you're just resting to have a nap or something, just chuck a recorder on.
Actually, I've got one recording where I wanted to play with it, and I don't know what that I don't know if that, I
you'll
feel like
refine it. Have you heard of the sleeping prophet, Edgar Casey?
Yes, I have. And is it David Wilcock is said to be the reincarnation.
Friend of mine from California.
Is he a friend of yours?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I'd love to get him.
Great guy.
Yeah, I'd love to get him.
And I think he probably was
Yeah?
Edgar Casey.
Wow.
He looks just like him.
Looks exactly like him.
He's fully tapped in, but
Yeah.
he's not here for that in this life.
No, he's doing the ancient alien stuff and
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, very interesting, that sort of stuff. Tapping into something that's
Man,
beyond you.
Bring your gift out, brother.
Yeah.
I love it.
I might have to do that.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, where were we? Because we've gone on a few
what were we
tangents.
talking about
The
there?
Jedi.
Jedi. So this has been a pathway that I've been on for many years.
Mm-hmm.
In 2022, May 4th, actually, may the 4th be with you. May 4th of 2022,
Yep.
I had this little bird in my ear, like, you have to launch this program and start teaching it. And trust me, I'm just like, what? Like, I don't even know this stuff. Like, I need to put it, I kind of do, but I don't. I need to structure. And like, it's a whole thing that I've learned from this guy. Like, my teacher passed away, Dr. Ramsey Salim. So he passed away, and he, something that always stuck with me is like, if you have the duty to teach and to share your knowledge. If you know something that could help humanity, if you know the way, like, you have a duty to teach and to share it. And so that kind of always stuck with me, like, okay, well, at some point I'll open up. Like, my business has been fasting, detoxification, health, longevity tours. Like, that's my thing.
Yeah.
But really what's my thing behind the scenes is like the truth of like our process of ascension and growth and becoming a Jedi and Jesus and the masters. Like, that's where I'm really like, that's what I want to know. It's the juicy stuff. So again, on May 4th of 2022, I launched it, and I'm so glad that I did. The whole, Ancient Apocalypse with Graham Hancock.
Yes, yeah.
That came out like 3 or 4 months later.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank God I launched it and at least did it, because so much of what I said, people might have said, oh, you're just copying what he just did on Ancient Apocalypse.
Yep, okay.
It's like, no. This goes way back. So back to the story of like ancient Egyptian natural medicine, this book I received, I read it, went through it, and it's like, your liver breaks down red blood cells, it detoxifies, it does all this, but then energetically, what is your liver? This is a great conversation. It'd be great for the podcast just to get this out.
Yeah.
Is back in ancient Egypt, they had these 4 canopic jars. And a canopic jar is when you die, they take the organs out of your body and they put it in this jar. And everybody's just like, what the hell are they doing? Right? And the jars have different heads. So one of the heads is a falcon, and they put your small intestines into it.
Okay.
One of the heads is like Anubis, the jackal, like a dog. They put your stomach in that. It's like your stomach is the digestive, like the jackal can digest. It would dig up things in the cemetery and eat it, like the power of digestion.
Yeah.
Anyways, they got the baboon head is your lungs. And then they put your liver into this canopic jar with the head of a human.
Okay. Your liver.
Your liver is the head of a human. So when you study the ancient Egyptian, they called these the 4 sons of Horus. Like, these are like 4 beings that exist inside of our body that are helping us get through life.
Yeah. I mean, why do we like look back on these ancient traditions as just, old primitive civilizations that had no idea and they worshipped ghosts.
Well, it sounds batshit crazy. You know, why would you take your organs out and put them in a jar?
Yeah.
Until you start to dig a little bit deeper and then maybe have an experience. So part of what physically happens whenever we eat food, doesn't matter what you eat something, it's going to be taken up by the bloodstream in the small intestine. It's taken directly to the liver. And the liver actually changes the food, the particles, whatever you want to call it. It humanizes the food.
Okay.
It makes it usable by us as humans.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can say, okay, well, you know, the liver humanizes the food, so maybe that's why they have a picture of a human on there. But it goes even further. And this is just a big what if scenario. What if I'm not the only one here?
Yeah.
Okay. What if, I'm here, my consciousness.
Yeah.
But what if I got some other potential conscious entity, something almost like this is the ship of Tyler Tolman, and I've got some people inside of here helping me, like conscious beings somehow helping me through this journey. Yeah. And maybe there's this evolutionary process where a being will come in and assist a human through life by doing the work and doing this, earning their way to then eventually becoming a human. Like, I'm just saying, what if?
Yeah.
Sounds batshit crazy.
Yeah.
But get this. You know, what if your liver is finally gotten to a stage where he's going to help you in this life, and then in the next, you know, he'll get the opportunity to become a human? Like, what if we have to actually work for it? Now, that's whatever. Let that go. I'm going to tell you about an experience.
Okay.
I'm living in Missouri. We're building a business called the Whole Food Pharmacy, you know, making whole food products, everything natural. We say, you know, if you can't eat it, you shouldn't put it on your body. So we had personal care and all this sort of stuff.
Awesome.
We got this big manufacturing. We opened up this vegetarian restaurant, a little bit of a bar with some pool tables, and I'm working there and, you know, mostly a good person, eat healthy, helping people, doing good stuff.
Yeah.
And one night we have this karaoke night, and it's like, you know, let's have some drinks. Typically we just have a beer, a couple beers, not a big deal, get a little buzz, have a good time.
Yeah.
Don't take it too far. And this one night, this guy, Richard, comes in. He's just like, oh, man, have a shot, tequila or something. I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever. I'll relax and I'll have a shot. So I have a shot, doing some karaoke, have another shot, doing some karaoke, start drinking different types of alcohol. And before I know it, like, I have no idea. Drink way too much. Like, alcohol poisoning death scenario.
Wow. Fuck. Okay.
Okay. And I find myself, like, drank so much. And then I don't really remember, but there was pizzas, and I probably had this experience where I was just like, I just need to eat as much pizza as I can to like soak up the alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And I go upstairs.
Whatever makes sense in your head. Yeah.
From a really dumb place.
Yeah.
And I'm up laying on this couch, spinning, just like gone, right? And feeling just the sickest I've ever felt in my life. And I have this experience laying there while I'm spinning, feeling sick, spinning, feeling sick. My liver speaks to me.
Wow.
Never had an experience like this in my life. My liver is like, I'm just going to interpret. It's like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And I'm spinning there. I'm here. This, oh, you son of a bitch. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And all of a sudden I become aware my liver is talking to me. And I'm just like, oh, what?
Yeah.
It's like, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
You abuse me. You constantly, you do this all the time. You don't even care. You never don't acknowledge me. Like, all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, I didn't even know like you were a person or something. You know what I mean? Like, totally stupid.
Yeah.
I start rubbing my liver. I'm like, I'm so sorry. It's like, no, that's not going to do it. I'm done.
Oh.
And you're going to die. And I'm like, oh no, please. Like, and I had these flashes, like I was going to die in that moment. Like I was going to die. People would find me the next day and be like, oh, alcohol poisoning, drank way too much. He's dead. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I'll never do that again. And my liver's like, yeah, you've said that before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I swear to God, I will never do that again. And my liver stopped, was like, you swear to God? It was like this moment.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I swear to God, I will never do that again. And immediately I was sober.
Wow. Like a detox. And
from spinning and sick and to just completely sober, just had a conversation with my liver.
Yeah. Now,
and
whether
I was like,
or not
holy shit.
Whether or not you're hallucinating or not, if that's the way the body wants to communicate to you through to make sense of what's happening, and your body just saying, oi, fucking stop this shit. You're fucking me up. Yep.
It's an experience. So immediately I was like, holy shit, my liver just talked to me. I'm going to go drink some water.
Yeah.
And like literally have never done that again. Like
So
I'll
never-
have a beer,
Yeah, okay.
but I've never like get on the piss and I've never been like drunk
Yeah.
since that time.
It's hard because I'm in that area where I really want to reduce drinking, which I have. I've dramatically reduced drinking over the last.
Maybe you can swear to
3,
God on your
4
liver.
Yeah, yeah. I've dramatically reduced it over the last few years, and I've kept the drunk nights to a very bare minimum. Probably 1 or 2 a year, sort of.
Yeah.
Which is again, that's pretty good. But even
A
then,
birthday or
yeah, something special. And
yeah,
sometimes your arm can get twisted. But like, if
Yeah.
I feel like I'm living, 90% as best as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Potentially, that's me just being a little bitch. Maybe I should just go, nah, I'm all in, no more. But
Yeah.
at this stage, I'm fine with a bit of wiggle room. Have a couple of beers and
Yeah.
whatnot. But yeah, there is this this part of me that anytime I do get drunk, I get to a point at the night where I'm nearly going to get really drunk, and I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be tired and go home.
Start drinking some water. And
Yeah.
go to
I just
sleep.
and
Try to
it's-
wake up not dead.
Yes, and I don't know why it's not. I've had a few bad drunken nights over the last 3 or 4 years where I woke up really bad.
Yeah.
Where you just get, you get ahead of yourself and you get excited.
And we're not getting younger, so
Yeah.
you feel
Mate,
it.
Last time that happened, I was in Thailand, which I'm going in 2 weeks. So I need to use this.
You needed this chat?
Yeah, I needed this chat. I went there and I'd done 75 hard, which is 75 days of
Awesome.
no drinking and eating well and sticking to a certain diet, exercising twice a day, reading a book.
Yep.
So I went there. And I was actually like 68 days in, and I was like, no, I'm going to have a drink. So 68 days in of not drinking and being very strict and that. And then I remember it was an overnight flight, I think it was, or it was a morning flight, and I don't eat breakfast. And I was like, well, I'll just eat some lunch when I get to Kuala Lumpur and stop over. And I went there, and they only had McDonald's or something. I was like, fuck it, I'll just eat when I get to Thailand. And so I realised I'd not eaten for 26 hours by the time I got there. Went and seen mum and dad. Haven't seen them for a while. They live there. And we went to the pub, and the first thing I did, I didn't even have a meal. I had a beer. And I hadn't drunk beer for 70 days nearly and it's a 26-hour fast. So I think about 4 beers in, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I woke up the next morning the worst. I think genuinely the worst I've ever felt in my life.
Sick as a dog.
And I haven't been that bad since. I have had a couple of nights where I've gone a little bit too hard, but I think stepping back and just going, your body is a temple.
Yes.
And it houses more than just your, well, no, for me, as simple as it is, whatever this is housing, this vessel, this consciousness, it deserves respect. It deserves a clean house.
Yes.
And I'm trying my very best.
Yeah.
With knowledge that I'm gaining through talking to people like you, Dr. Anthony Chafee, people we've had on the podcast who are talking about, chronic illness and whatnot. And it's hard to navigate because at times you get thrown all these different things of information and you're like, oh, no, that's actually making more damage. But
So maybe we can touch on this.
Yeah.
Because from the health side of things, we teach 7 principles of health.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's a lot of contention and fighting and back and forth and, oh, am I good? Am I bad? Or this or that on the whole food side. Right. And I think it's important to understand that there's 7 areas of health and to not get too caught up on one. Because usually where a lot of people are really caught up on one, they're probably not doing something else somewhere else. So those are air, water, sunshine, exercise and movement, whole foods, relationships, and passion. These are the 7 essentials. So if I told you beforehand, hey, go meditate, as long as you need to meditate on what are the things that you can't live without, ultimately, these are the things you'd come up with. You have to breathe or you die pretty quick. You have to drink water, you die pretty quick. Without sunlight, Earth would be gone pretty quick. Without some form of food, and especially whole food, life can't be that great. And then we have, relationships.
yeah,
We
stimulate.
need relationships.
Yep.
If you're all by yourself, most people would die.
Mental health.
Some people would thrive, like me, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
Like we need the companionship.
Isolation is never good.
Yeah, for too long.
Yeah.
And then there's passion. And, I see passion as like a mission in life. And the word passion is like passing ions. And ions are units of energy. And you'll notice if you're ever doing something you're really passionate about, you'd forget about food. You forget about all these other things because it's like a soul food. So there's these 7 principles of health that I think are important to acknowledge and build into our life. It's things that essentially I want to do the best that I can every single day.
Yeah.
You know, you'll find that anybody who's a real master, anybody who's really onto it and successful, they most likely have like a morning routine or something they're going through. And that's where they're hitting air, water, sunshine, movement.
I certainly
exercise.
need to add air, and it keeps getting thrown in my face. One of our sponsors is Goat Tape. You put it on your nose, lets in more air.
Oh, I love it.
So,
I love it.
It's that one keeps getting thrown in my face. Breathe more, because I definitely go. I hold my breath in certain situations. So that breath is a big thing.
Man, the air is a huge one. Wim Hof, just start with that. It's easy. You pull up a thing. It's 11 minutes, but it's going to be like this. Wim Hof, the basic 11-minute, 30 breaths, whatever. Yeah. I did it on the way over here.
Really?
Yeah. So,
awesome.
I mean, you can fit breath work in anywhere.
Yeah, I do need to add that to
15 minutes to get here, got in, turned on Wim Hof, and I'm breathing while I'm driving.
It is a part of my meditation, a certain cycle of breaths that I like to do, and I never got told how to do it. It just came to me, and this is the natural way of doing it.
You're doing that.
Yes.
Okay, so it's acknowledging what you're already doing, and then asking yourself, is that enough or should I add something else? Mm-hmm. I like passive breathing exercises and meditation breathing exercises. I also like the active. So passive is like the feminine, active is like the masculine.
Okay.
And so I like to incorporate a little bit of the feminine, a little bit of the masculine every single day.
Bit of balance, yeah.
Yeah, and then seeing it where we're at. And then maybe learning a technique that's like really full on and seeing if you can get there. So I do one called 20-20-20. It's a 1-minute breath. 1 minute breath is while you're meditating, you breathe in for 20 seconds, hold it for 20 seconds, out for 20 seconds. In for 20 seconds, hold for 20 seconds, out for 20 seconds.
It's very similar to what I do, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it's very precise in the sense that, I have a thing that's like ticking. Don't have to. Sometimes I just count in my head. But you're counting because you want to breathe literally in slow, 20, 20.
Control, yeah. Because that's similar to what I do. That's almost exactly. That's
awesome.
Almost exactly what I do. I don't do it for 20 seconds. I just do it in the deep breath in as long as I can. And then I hold it for an extended period of time. And then I let it out.
Super slow.
For an extended period of time. And then I hold it. And then I breathe back in. And I almost visualize it's like the air's going through me and then the old air's coming out of me.
I love it.
And that's whatever that is, gets me in this. It really calms my nervous system. I go from feeling almost shaky, like if I have a coffee or too many coffees, like you can get that buzz, that sort of fuzzy feeling.
Yeah.
It makes me feel, I always explain it as when I talk to people about it, it's like I feel soft. Whereas before I felt like buzzy, like almost anxiety.
Yeah. I love it. So, these are the things I'm talking about when it comes to like the physician. Like there was a whole pathway of education and things specifically that they're doing. This is called the physical culture. So I believe no matter what, if you're just a good human doing good things, trying to figure it out, you're gonna naturally start to do these things anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But imagine if you had a teacher 20 years ago that was saying just breathe exactly this way and do exactly this thing. And when you do it, it opens these gifts. This is what I'm talking about. So maybe we'll transition now into as above, so below.
Yes, because I wanted to come back to that. That was very intriguing.
So as above, so below, we have the 12 signs of the zodiac above. Imagine those are like 12 characteristics and traits that make me up as like a whole human.
Yeah.
A lot of times we look at the zodiac and we're like, oh, I'm a Sagittarius or I'm a this or I'm a that. And it's like, well, that might be a dominant energy that you were born into, but you're all of it. You're the whole zodiac.
Okay.
And in fact, actors are really good at just changing and tapping into this characteristic and trait. And we look at actors and we're like, oh, wow, actors are so amazing because they can just bounce and become these different things. But ultimately, all of that is within us. So in the sense of as above, so below, this is a law which states that which is above is similar to and like that which is below. So where do we find the zodiac down here? And you can look up the 12 cranial nerves. So if anybody just goes on Google and looks up 12 cranial nerves, it'll pull up an anatomy image of the brain, and you'll see there's a central core, and there's these 12 cranial nerves that branch out of the brain. Okay?
12.
12.
Yeah.
And so remember, back in the ancient past, they'd wear a golden crown, and a lot of times they'd have these 12 jewels
Okay.
that would represent the 12 cranial nerves. And of course, there's the center. And back in ancient Egypt, they said your pineal gland at the center is the seat of the soul. What does that mean, the seat of the soul? Like, and I ask this question all the time, do you have a soul? And people are like, oh, yeah. It's like, no, you are a soul.
You are a soul. That was the first question. Really, Alan Watts posed it in one of his lectures, and I bought his whole collection back in the day when I had to pay a shitload instead of going on YouTube. But one of the questions he posed was, when you say "I am," I think it was like, "Who is I?"
Yes.
Who is that?
Yes.
And I went, "Oh my god." I am a soul. I have a soul. I don't know which one. Well, who's saying I?
Do you want to know?
Yes.
Do you want to know all of it?
Please tell me the secrets.
Yes.
Yes.
Gnosis. I am. Okay. So the Egyptians said the pineal gland is the seat of the soul. And around that is the 12 cranial nerves. As above, 12 signs of the zodiac, and maybe our sun, okay, being at the center of our universe. Down on earth, we have Christ and the 12 disciples. Okay, why? Why is it like this? Because as within, so without. Okay, so if it's organized in here, this is organized by the divine. And I want to organize out there the same because it's the energetics of that. So what is the I am? What am I? And this is the piece. When I opened up that book, you know what it said?
What?
It said, your soul is a living star. And then I'm going to sing you a song. Like I'm singing it to my 2-year-old.
Okay.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
Yeah.
That's what you are. Your soul. Just follow me here.
Yeah.
Imagine that if you had to make God physical,
Yeah.
okay, there was an original point, bang.
Yeah.
What's that original point? Well, let's say it's the source of all light. It goes bang. That bang is a piece of God in the form of a star.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I look up to the heavens and I see the stars, we all want to be, I want to be a star. I want to shine.
Yeah.
We love the stars, the superstars, the sports players, the actors, the singers, like the ones that are like streaming that energy through. They're on, right? It's like they have a pure stream of their star energy coming through. That we call them stars. So just imagine when you look up at the sky at night, all of the stars are a sun somewhere. And we call it a sun. And there's no accident. I believe that English is the tongue of angels. English is the tongue of angels. The tongue of angels, English, in the way that we speak, just happen to be lucky enough to speak English. And I don't say it just because I speak English. I have some other languages. But I think that everything can be unpacked from it. And things that are alike are like that because they are alike. So the sun, which is our physical star here, is also the son of God. The son of God. Yeah. And the sun is my savior. Nobody can deny it. This is not some woo-woo, dudes coming in from the clouds.
It is the source of
this
all
is
life.
the actual dude in the clouds.
Yeah.
This is the son of God shining his light, giving life to everything here. So you have to follow this, that everything that we see that is physical also is spiritual. We always try to separate it. Oh, God's just this weird universal. No, this is God. God is everything.
Yeah.
Everything that I perceive, everything that I see, whether you call it a matrix, whether you call it reality, it doesn't matter what you call it. It matters because I make it matter. Matter matters. It's called matter, and we say it matters for a reason, right?
Yeah, the spoken word and English language in itself, which is just so absurdly frustrating, the way some of these words have come up and they all mean different things. It almost feels like, again, by design.
There's reasons.
Yeah.
And when you understand language, and especially when you learn the Egyptian, because I can teach the Egyptian, and the glyphs of the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs almost exactly match the English letters. So it's easy to memorize, because if I know the letter A looks just like the way they draw the vulture. And it's just like there's a play. But when you learn the language of nature, it teaches you the deeper meanings and principles behind each letter. Because then when you put letters together, there's this deeper understanding of language altogether. And I would say you don't need that. Like if you really understand English and we have conversation, we dig deep on each thing, you can figure it out anyways.
Yeah.
So let's just go back to this piece. Okay, so we have the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just pretend that what I actually am is a star. Mm-hmm. I'm a soul. Mm-hmm. I am a soul. Yeah. I have a body.
Yeah.
Okay, you heard of Dr. Bruce Lipton?
That's the way I'd describe it. Would be I am a soul. I have a body.
Yes. I'm manifesting here. My vibrations come down, and I'm manifesting in the physical. And this can pass, and it will happen again, because the vibration from that is all pervading. You know, the star is putting out energy everywhere. Have you heard of Dr. Bruce Lipton?
No, the name sounds familiar, but no.
So he wrote a couple books. Most of your listeners, a lot of them probably know who he is. Very popular guy. He wrote a book called Spontaneous Evolution and Biology of Belief. And he's a biologist at the core. And he's the type of biologist that was literally looking under a microscope, looking at cells, trying to understand how things operate. And I'm going to make a long story short and probably hack it and not do a great job. But if you read his book, it's profound. And he's basically saying the cells are receiving a frequency from somewhere telling the cell what to do, right? And we believe that inside of this body, I have a nervous system, the brain, pineal, spinal cord, 12 cranial nerves, 144,000 nerve endings through my body. And we believe that it's the signal from the brain going out to the body telling all the cells what to do. That's just what we believe. Yep. The problem is you take the cells out of the body and they still do what they're supposed to do. They'll still self-organize and they'll still function. They're still receiving a signal from somewhere. It's all connected.
Yeah.
Right?
Is this where we see like the Schumann resonance and how that is the earth in itself is vibrating?
That's probably a big part of it. So what he's basically coming to say is the signal is coming from somewhere else. It's not actually coming from here. And I think what we're going to find out is like when you put, you know, those things on the brain, positron emissions, tomography. They had it at John Hopkins. My dad's done this stuff.
EEGs, I think.
Yeah, they put it on your brain, and they're like, okay, juggle, and certain parts of the brain light up. And then it's like, tell me what you're doing where you lived when you're 7 years old.
Yeah.
And then this area brain lights up, this area of the brain lights up.
Yeah.
That lighting up, the neurons are the principle of as above, so below. Each neuron is connected to a star. There's a certain amount of billion. They say, you know, everybody says a different number. Let's say there's 100 billion neurons inside of the brain. Well, there's 100 billion stars in our galaxy.
And it's incredible to see how the universe replicates itself in so many different forms, where you see that circle pattern, that spiral pattern, you see the eye, you see everything. It recreates itself. And again, it doesn't feel like a coincidence.
Yes. As above, so below.
Yeah.
The law of similarities, a thing like unto itself is drawn. There's this organization, you know, and I believe, you know, the truth, we can see it, you know, and it probably gives us hints to what's going on up there. It's like, I'm looking in your eyes now. What do I see? I see a perfect circle.
Yeah.
Right? And I see another circle, and at the center is a black hole.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, what is this? What's going on there? And I'm an iridologist. I've been studying iridology for...
What's iridology?
That means I can take a photo of your eyeball,
Yeah.
blow it up on a computer, look at a map, and I can see every organ of your body.
I remember this because you showed what certain vein...
On the tour, I would have been showing maps.
Yes,
and
maps
photos
of the eyes.
and,
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Fuck, that's
So your eyes give me an exact reading of the state of your liver, your kidneys, your lungs, your lymphatic system, your blood circulatory system. The color and minor little things will show up. So it's like an upfront display to the hardware that's going on inside of your body. Not only that, where we can see markings in your iris will give us information as to where you have emotional traumas and blocks and things you held onto.
Yeah.
So the reason iridology is so profound to me is I've never met somebody. I pull up their eye photos and I'm like, tell me about left eye mother, right eye father, this issue, like trauma. I'll give you an example. A guy shows up in a wheelchair, sitting there. He's going to have a consultation with me. I sit down and take his eye photos. I basically just met the guy and asked his name. And I'm looking at the photos. He's talking to his wife. And I looked at him, and I'm like, left eye, upper back. So in the left eye that I'm looking at, in the area of the spine, there's a massive black spot at the top of where the spine should be.
Okay.
So what that tells me is there's a degenerative disease or a tumor on the top of his spine.
Okay.
Now, I know that the back represents support. It supports the body to stand up, but emotionally, upper back represents emotional support.
Okay.
And then the lower back is like financial support, feeling safe.
Yeah.
A lot of people that have lower back pain, it's like constant worry about money, worry about losing their job, constant worry and struggle. Am I safe? These sorts of things. So because I see this on his upper back, on the left eye, not the right eye, it doesn't show up at all, I know that it's not feeling emotionally supported by women is the core of the issue emotionally. Now, I get this because I've been doing this for years, and depending on where it is, there's different emotions associated with different parts of the body.
Yeah.
And of course, talking to the guy, he's got a tumor growing on the top of his spine.
Oh my Lord.
This guy's like 6'4".
Yeah.
And it's slowly been growing to the point where he can no longer walk and he's in a wheelchair.
Oh.
I look at his chart, I look at him, and I said, what did I say? I said, do you feel emotionally supported by women? Now later, the woman told me, in our marriage, as long as we've been married, I've never seen him cry. He's like,
Yeah.
total man, doesn't show emotion. I've just met the guy, got his name, sat down, looked at his eye chart, looked at him, and I held space, took a deep breath, and I said, do you feel emotionally supported by women?
Yeah.
He lost it.
Fuck.
Fully. Like, I'm talking big beard, burly guy, losing it. All this emotion coming out. If we could have measured that tumor, it was probably shrinking while he was emoting all this stuff. Because the eyes are telling us the core issue and what's going on. Of course, the body is constantly trying to speak to us with symptoms and things that are going on.
I'm interested. I'm going to be selfish here because I've had a similar thing with my neck. And I've had this issue with nerve pain in the
right side
of my neck.
Yep.
And we've gone through, I've seen my mate who's a shoulder specialist. I've actually got atrophy in the back of one of my muscles. The nerve's shut off. He said generally that happens through a dislocation or something in the shoulder and it can cut off the nerve. But for whatever reason, this seems to be occurring in the neck. We'll have to get an MRI to figure out what's pressing it. Could be a tumor, could be a cyst or something like that holding onto the neck and causing it. Regardless. But it could just be the bed. Could just be the bed, but what would like? Could just be the bed. Could be just be the bed and pillows. But so, what would it say? Like, what would that come from? That
most
example?
of the time, we'll start with physical. Most of the time, when you have shoulder neck issues, it's related to your liver.
Okay,
because your liver's on the right side.
Yep.
So if we're feeling pain, a lot of times we need to clean up the liver.
Yeah.
The liver is very much associated to like anger, frustration.
Yeah.
Could be hate. Gallbladder, and sometimes liver's resentment.
Oh yeah,
like resenting some stuff.
Well, straight away I was judging myself, and I didn't like the smoking, and I thought, I guess smoking weed is not good. I'm sure it's not great for the liver.
But it's also your judgment around it.
100%, it was the judgment.
Like, you know, if you're doing something you think is bad, but you do it anyway, then what's that going to do to you mentally and emotionally?
Yeah.
Regardless of the physical.
Yeah.
Because if another person, I believe, just smoking marijuana and cigarettes and doesn't think twice about it and just thinks it's healthy and cracks on, they probably never get sick from it.
Never. Yes. 100%. And I've talked to my partner about this.
I shouldn't say that. I'm the health guy.
No, yeah. But the judgment I was holding for myself for it not being, it went from pain relief, which I only ever use that for pain if I had real bad, or it went for like, instead of drinking, might just sit around and have a giggle with some friends or whatever.
Yeah.
And it went to a place where I felt like it was almost a dependence.
Yes.
It's like, hey, you didn't need it that night.
So now let's focus on shoulder, neck. So shoulder is shouldering too much responsibility.
Yeah.
Masculine.
Yeah.
So it's like taking it all on.
Yeah.
Having to constantly shoulder stuff. I believe the neck is the inability to see the perspective. So it's like blocked, not able to see the perspective. And again, it's masculine side. So sometimes these are related to other people. Sometimes it's related to self.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a tough time seeing the perspective of a man in your life, your father or another man, or something's going on, or there's judgment around that, then it'll create a neck issue. And, maybe you can't see your own perspective. You're caught up. You're shouldering too much.
Nah, seeing other people's perspective, I was shut off to, and I've been recently had that shoved in my face.
Okay. Good.
Noticed that. And I've called myself out on it.
Got it.
Called myself out with some friends. That's just been too forceful when they poke me. They don't need to poke the bear. But they poke the bear and I go, mate, it's this, bang, 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 and go back at them. And I was like, I didn't need to do that. Like, I should at least look at it from their perspective.
Yes. And that's seeing perspectives.
Yeah.
And keeping in mind, anytime the bear's poking you, remember, it's a reflection, as without, so within. This is when I say everything speaks, everything is God. If you're like, oh, this person's always constant, you don't poke the bear, effer.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's the opportunity to see where I'm triggered.
Yeah.
That's the opportunity to see what I'm judging. Right?
Yes.
And if I just allow to see the opportunity, but it's all perfect. If you snap, that's going to create the reaction that will bring the resolution,
100%.
maybe in a way that you don't like it.
Yeah.
And so there's a better way to approach it.
Yeah.
But all of it is about this process of seeing things with balance, doing things with balance, because ultimately we want to be in the middle path. But to be in the middle path, sometimes we got to bang around so that we understand the dark, we understand the light, we understand this bit, we understand that bit. And then it's like, and even your life.
I feel like I'm that little, just that little bit
well,
at the
that's
end.
good.
Yeah.
This is good.
This
is not good.
Yeah.
This is, this is children. This is children. When we're born into everything's happy. Oh, I'm losing my shit. And it's like, at least they're expressing, but they're learning the process that way.
Yeah.
And this is the pyramid. This is the eye. This is the piece. This is the pendulum.
Yeah, it does.
So the master is the individual who can rise above the swing of the pendulum. This is the law of polarity.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about universal laws, the law of polarity, law of the pendulum, law of rhythm. Tide comes up, tide goes down. But the first law of all of the laws, the law of mentalism. Everything is mental. Okay, so which means all of the laws exist, but there are laws that can supersede other laws. And the master has the capacity to see that the pendulum is going to swing, they're poking the bear, and I can take a deep breath and I can rise above it and actually, this is their perspective, this is what's going on here. I could actually be more balanced in it and approach things.
Yeah.
And then we don't judge.
Well, the perfect example is if a friend is sending me something that I disagree with, instead of trying to convince them why that's wrong, look into what they're saying and then go
absorb it.
Maybe they're
as
correct.
If it's truth.
Yes.
Yes. This is the
It
piece.
was a big thing that had been chucked in my face for the last 2 or 3 weeks because I had been proven correct a few times over the last year or two.
Yeah.
And you go, nah, I'm onto it.
Yeah.
The ego steps in. Like, no. They can't be telling me. I'm the one.
Yeah.
So, the ego was checked. And even if I am correct, it's still value in checking.
1,000%.
Yeah.
So the piece is, somebody sends me something, I disagree. That means I'm judging it.
Correct.
If I feel triggered, I'm judging it, which means I need to understand it. So if I take away my filters, watch this thing as if I don't know and maybe this person's right, and I'm willing to just say, okay, I'm going to watch this as if they're right. Try to see it with a different lens. The worst case scenario that's going to happen is you upgrade, or let's say you are completely right and that's completely wrong, but you actually take away the filters.
Yeah.
You're going to learn how they came to the conclusion of believing the thing that they're believing by watching the video from their perspective. What that allows you to do then is ask the right questions. Because if you understand their perspective, then you're like, oh, I can see how you've come to believe this.
Yeah.
Therefore, now, okay, because I believe this way, these are the questions that I need to ask in order for them to see my perspective. I'm never going to tell somebody my perspective. I'm not going to say, do this, do that, and look at my thing. I'm going to ask a question that challenges the fundamental basis of their belief system so that they have to come up with a solution
Themselves.
And this is Socratic questioning.
Yeah.
So Socrates was the genius of just asking questions that led people to the truth.
Well, a friend of mine's been using the Socratic method in his podcasting. And I mean, I like to just have a chat, a conversation. It goes where it goes.
Totally.
So I don't like to use any sort of form of questioning. But like it is, he explained it to me, broke it down one by one, and I was like, wow, it is an interesting way of doing things. But again, it's rewiring those neural pathways for that to be your sort of default mode. They're like, okay, well, I'm not going to lash out. And you're not going to be able to change that overnight. So
the best practice is I feel something, breath. Immediately.
Okay.
Instead of a reaction, don't even allow yourself to respond.
Yeah.
Focus on this. Go to your meditation.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm triggered.
Why?
Yeah.
Which
means I'm judging this, which means I'm probably going to say something from the wrong place.
Correct.
How can I bring it back to my heart, stop judging it, seek to understand with courtesy, manners, and respect? How can I stay in a situation of friendship and love and, potentially learn something?
Yeah.
When I stop trying to be right, everything changes.
Yeah.
A big piece that I got is everybody is right from their own perspective.
Yeah, that's
everybody's right from their own perspective. And this is a big one that, like, if listeners really take this on, no matter what someone tells me, they're telling the truth. To a degree, from their perspective. And I will accept it. First, I'm going to accept it as being a possibility of truth. Tyler, you're a dickhead and you're killing babies because of what you teach. Oh, you mother.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. And what good is that going to do?
Yeah.
Am I really going to get anywhere doing this with somebody? Absolutely not. Tyler, you're a piece of shit. You're killing children because of what you teach. You know what? What if you're right?
Yeah, fuck. Maybe I should go back, check what I'm doing.
How does that feel?
Yeah.
Fuck. What if I am?
Yeah. Healthy reflection.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay. Now, if you're correct and I'm killing babies because of what I'm teaching, I at least need to give it the time and the space to feel and question, could that possibly be true? Right? And let somebody see, like, oh, man, you know what? I actually care about children.
Yeah.
I care about what you're saying, and so what you're saying hurts me deeply. And I want to understand this. And so, how did you come? Like,
yeah, please tell me.
How did you come to the conclusion I'm killing children? Like, let's talk about it, because I don't want to kill children.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Did you consider this?
And
no,
then,
I didn't.
Yeah, and then we can have a conversation. It's like, oh, well, okay, cool. Like, man, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
You could be right in that case. And, like, can I at least make a case for why I've said these things? Okay, well, now that I've let you speak and have a conversation and taken it on, here's why I say these things. Because when I read the studies of the mRNA thing, this is what I saw. When I read this thing, I could see the actual research of this many people harmed. And so I'm just trying to reveal the research that's actually there, which I think in big ways partially suppressed. You know what I mean?
And we see it.
So I'm seeing it one-sided. You're seeing it one-sided. But, hey, this is why.
We see it everywhere. We see that tribalism. We see it very heavily in US politics.
Law of polarity, man.
We're starting to see it in Australian politics. We're starting to see it within the health sectors. Yep. Anti-vax versus pro-vax, like turning it into sides instead of like, wow, we all want the same thing. We all want the same thing. We want the best for everyone.
Yes.
And we just disagree on the pathways there. And I'm very conscious of our platform being used in that way. And I fall into the trap a lot of like, okay, this is what I think, and I'll voice my opinion about it, and then I'll clip it up, and it becomes a polarizing clip. And what I found is the ones that have been most most love-driven and most let's come together have been the ones that have failed the most, and the ones that seem to side with the side are the ones that go viral. And I don't want to contribute to the division anymore, and I find it difficult.
How do I bring balance and get...
It's difficult, man.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to navigate. Yeah. And then if I was to clip this up, for example, it's not going to do anything, because people are going to go, well, I want you to affirm what I believe.
Yeah.
And it's hard when we're stuck in this polarizing society but I guess the thing is to remain true to what you're trying to do.
Let me explain why this happens. Because The pyramid's like this, right? And the pendulum swings, so it swings more for the people at the bottom.
Yeah.
So society is the pyramid, okay? And the lowest degree of society is the masses.
Yeah.
So when I say the masses, like the masses of people who are essentially not awake yet, that are maybe the Great Awakenings, like there's people popping. There's more and more going up the rungs because of the suppression, because of the things that are happening. But it's still, the majority still is on the law of polarity at its greatest swing. And this is the thing, the control, the powers that be know whatever division we can create that creates the polarity gets the people's attention on that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what they're constantly going to do.
The hate breeds viral.
Yeah. And that's where the numbers are. So podcast, news media, all of it, they're going to play on the thing that's the most polarized because that's where the masses, that's where they kind of get their soul food, so to speak. It's an addiction, just like anything else, right? It's an addiction. Veganism is an addiction. I'm not saying it's not healthy. I'm just saying it's an addiction.
Yeah.
And maybe carnivorism is an addiction. And all these things, smoking a cigarette and looking at the screen and having like, oh, you think Trump's a good guy? Oh, you think Trump's a bad guy? It's like, let's have this fight. Yeah, energy. At least I feel something. I feel alive.
Yeah.
Like, something to fight.
And when you take an addiction or a dependence on something, whatever it is, it becomes less of a choice, is what I've been finding. Because you're no longer making a conscious decision to have this conversation or drink that drink or smoke that smoke. You are doing it out of habit, and there is no choice in that. And so when you're not making a conscious decision, I feel like ridding yourself of our free will, that's what it is, an addiction or a dependence. That is almost the most debilitating we can do, debilitating thing we can do to a human.
Yeah. And so for the conscious individuals that are out there, where we kind of should be moving into is balance. If we can think anything that's really polarized, I probably need to look at the other side. Otherwise, in some way, I'm going to have a sore neck.
Because our listeners are very interested in this side of things, but I'd feel like because one side is sort of more aligned to this way of thinking, they tend to align with that side as well. So then they will be on this right side of things.
Yeah. Alignment is okay, right? And it's funny, the law of polarity, it's probably in this situation a little bit biased. But in the law of polarity, it states like there's a negative and there's a positive. And what we want to do is anchor ourselves slightly positive. And what that means is I'm not going to get super excited and, because then the pendulum's probably going to swing and you're going to be crying and having some issues. Yeah. Right. And so it's like when you kind of look at the parties, it's like there's a left and there's a right. And it's like we should probably lean slightly on the right.
Yeah.
But with some discernment.
Yeah. Massive.
Right. And this is the thing, like the intelligent individual, now that it's all in play, we're going to see that it's not all perfect. Okay. And again, it might be more right than wrong.
Yeah.
Right. But we need to understand it's not perfect. And the problem is the polarization of the not perfect is the next play to get you off track or completely get you smacked out of space. So that, what I'm saying is there'll be something that's potentially off because it's not perfect and they're trying to figure it out. But then that thing will be taken and it's like, oh, you see this scenario of death again, this scenario of control.
And even the arguments that you have with people like online or messaging or back and forth, and it's taking you away from that present moment that you could be spending time with your daughter or like my dog, people that my like partner, anyone who's there, the presentness is gone because you're in this conversation and you're unscented, you feel
Zelensky and Trump fighting in the Oval Office.
100%. Yeah.
Everywhere I look, that's all we can see.
Exactly. And I'm like,
I need to get online and say something about it.
Yes.
It's like,
no
thanks.
Falling for the trap right here, right fucking here. And then it's been thrown in my face that this isn't what I want.
Yes.
I feel heavy lately.
So this is the piece. What is it? Why is it? Why is it? Why are we here? What is this? What's going on?
Yeah.
It's all there as the TV show to get caught up in.
It is theater.
It's the device. It's the theater, right? What is it trying to tell us?
I don't know.
It's trying to tell us that it's a reflection of what's going on in here. All of the chaos is the reflection of the chaos.
As within,
That's
so
it.
without.
You can look out there and fucking, you're a dickhead. No, you're amazing.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah. All of it.
Yeah.
I am a dickhead. This is what I'm saying. If somebody says something negative, you're probably right. And I need to self-reflect. Somebody says something positive, you're probably right about that too. And I need to self-reflect. I'm not going to get egoic and inflated and amazing because you say I'm an amazing person. Okay? It's just, okay, yeah, I do good. And, oh, you're a dickhead. And, oh, yeah, well, sometimes I'm a dickhead too. And that's okay. And as long as I accept all of it and I don't judge it and I develop myself. Trump's not going to save the world. Biden's not going to save the world. Zelensky, Putin, all of it. Like, the only one that is going to save the world, I just said it.
Yeah.
The one. You're the one.
Yeah.
You're the only one that's going to bring balance in here. And as you bring balance in here, balance out there is displayed in your reality. Yeah, and there are a lot of humans running around right now in balance, living in heaven, building their lives, spending time with their kids, and ignoring the bullshit.
And you watch when I go to Thailand and I put my phone in the safe and I don't listen to anything and don't hear a thing, how fucking happy I will be. I'll just be in balance. I'll be
peace.
At peace.
Yes.
And at peace is the one thing. And this is that self-focus that I have been probably preaching a little bit, but maybe not experiencing myself enough.
Sometimes we need to talk about it. And then we start to act on it. And then we become it. Gnosis, praxis, and telecus.
It's
right?
difficult as a social commentary podcast. Like, it's here. I'm talking about it. How can I not fucking dive into it? And I guess pointing out the absurdities on both sides is potentially the best way. But I think being my authentic self and trusting what's in here and the conversations I want to have this is a perfect example. Like, I love this chat. I love where it goes. I like these sorts of things. Health, the world, wellness, like everything. It's
the threads that we've opened here.
Oh yeah,
would take us a year to come back and tie up and finish off.
I have no idea what I'm going to clip up for this episode. It's that focus on self, and if we all focused on what we can improve. Internally and improve in ourselves or reflect on in ourselves, not necessarily improve because that's judgment, I guess, but things that we can work on and understand about ourselves instead of worrying about everyone else.
Yep.
And just go, well, if I can be a better person and if everyone else can be like that where they can understand themselves better and they can be a better person, then I don't have to worry about what they're doing because we're all trying to be as best we can for each other.
That's a big piece. You know, there's more to it. But essentially, you know, I believe that we are at a stage of humanity, the masses, where we are living in a state of consciousness that is generally good.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a scale that exists.
Depending on perspective.
Yeah. So in the ancient Egyptian teachings, there are 7 degrees of consciousness. These 7 degrees of consciousness, we've heard it a million times. Some people turn off by it, like the 7 chakras of the human body. And they're represented by color. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And in ancient Egypt, they said that the red is a degree of evil and self-interest, all right, and gaining power. And then the orange is almost like a sexual piece. And then yellow, they call it evil human. Little human, and then gentle human. Gentle is when you start to, and I've just opened up a whole nother can of worms here.
Plenty of time.
So yellow's like the gentle human. So think of like evil humans. Those are actual human beings that are a degree of consciousness that exists on this earth right now that a lot of us probably never come into contact to. So sometimes generally believe that they don't exist, but they do, that will murder you. They will rape women. They will just do anything. If there's something that they want, they'll steal it and take it because they want it, because they live by the law of force. They're a type of soul that has come in that it's actually at a lower degree of consciousness. Again, when you're a highly evolved individual, you think, oh, well, maybe they're just a good person and da-da-da-da. Well, they got a lot of soul growth to go through. And the process that the ancient Egyptians taught is that there is a cycle of reincarnation. And in each lifetime, you can learn heaps and grow through the cycles of consciousness, but you might require lots of lifetimes of banging around before you get to the next degree. Okay, so somebody who's here that's evil and they murder someone, steal, murder, rape, they need to be caught. They need to be put in prison because the soul will remember. Okay?
Yeah.
The body won't, but when they're born again and they go to steal or they go to murder and they're like, there's something in them that's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. What is that? It's soul memory of being imprisoned or having their head cut off or being hung. You get what I'm saying? Like the soul keeps that memory. So the person will literally only not do those things because they have this like overwhelming internal, like, don't do that, because they've had the soul evolution to that point. The next degree is little humans. Little humans might steal if it's the type of scheme they think they can get away with. They probably won't murder. They probably won't rape. They won't do things that are too out because they have that soul memory, but they're still little humans. They gossip, tall puppy syndrome, constantly trying to hold people down, negativity constantly, until they have another degree of soul growth that gets them to the yellow ray, which is the gentle human. The yellow ray gentle human is the entrepreneurial type. They're like, oh, you know what? I just want to live a good life. I just want to have a business, make some money, raise my kids, try to be a good human. Keeping in mind that this is not just an evolution. It can devolve. If a good person is trying to do good through their life, they're doing all these things, but they keep getting ripped off, somebody does, and finally they're just like, fuck it, and they go rob a bank or kill some people, they might have enough soul karmic experience to have to go back a notch and start over again. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the ancient Egyptians taught this to the youth. We're here for soul stuff. And there's, this is why they didn't need a standing military. They didn't need police force, because the people actually knew, hey, we're souls. We're like these stars that have come down to go through this process of evolution.
Yeah.
And they would live by these things naturally. From the yellow, you move into the green. The green is the heart. And that's mastery. Okay? So the master lives by the law of love.
Yeah.
This is where you get into a frequency of starting to understand that everything that I judge is because I'm not loving it. What is the definition of love?
It's interesting
Yeah.
because that aligns with the last words I wrote in my journal. Finished it off. I am love.
Yes.
That was it.
Yes.
That was all. That was the, yeah.
Yes. So, what's the definition of love? If you love something, you don't want to change it.
Yeah.
So what happens when your partner does something and you notice and you're like, hey, can you change this trait about yourself?
Yeah.
What's that doing?
Yeah.
It's not loving it.
It's not loving it. Yeah.
And they feel that, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They feel that. Why are you trying to change me? Like, why can't you just accept me? Like, you're like, well, it's just a little thing. It's not a big deal. If you could just change, though, then you'd be a better person.
I think like
Right.
I think I said this recently. We'll use my partner as an example and friends as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes the ones who are the closest to you,
Of course.
the things that probably annoy you the most
Yeah.
are also the things you love the most about them.
Totally.
And I think that's when you know. That's when you're like, that's the
Secret sauce.
That is the secret sauce. The things that annoy you the most are the like things I couldn't live without that.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so this is the point. Whatever I judge in life, I'm not loving.
Yeah.
If I want to change her, if I want to change you, if I want to change this, if I want to change the world, if I want to change Trump, if I want to change the government, if I want to change all these things, it's because I can't see the truth. It's because I'm not loving it. Are there parts of myself that I'm judging and not loving? Absolutely there are.
Yeah.
And whatever you judge, you're going to have in your face.
Yeah. Well,
Because that's universal intelligence will bring things to you to trigger you to show you what you're judging.
I truly believe that. And I feel like it manifests physically within your body. We see my neck and shoulder and whatnot. That judgment, that self-judgment.
So this is the green. This is where we live. where we are in this reality, I think most of us, I think especially everybody watching like this podcast, they're probably in that, gentle, good human, want to live a good life, do good things. And some of them truly wanting to be masters. A lot of people just want to live a good life, work their job, do their thing. They care, and they have love, and it's good, but they're not really interested in mastery. I don't need to be the master. I don't,
Do we need to be the master?
It's a stage of evolution. Okay.
And on that, like, what does it matter that we understand all this?
Exactly, right?
Also, a part of me is like, who cares?
Well,
just go sit
you
on the
do.
beach. Yeah,
You do.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's important. Language is important because there comes times where it's like, I don't care. Well, even in saying that, it shows you care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I certainly do, but almost there's that part of
course
me
you
that
do.
sees it from the other perspective of like, why can't I just be blissfully ignorant and just enjoy my life? It's hard. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And it's fucking annoying. I see it everywhere.
We're here for a reason.
Yeah, I think so.
We're being exposed for a reason. We genuinely desire mastery. Okay. We want to be the best that we can be. Okay. And it's, I believe, to a degree, the denial that we can be perfect that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. We have an underlying belief that I'm just a sinner. This is Christianity. I'm just a sinner. I'm just a bad person. I could never be perfect. So why did I even try?
Yeah.
And, Christianity, a big part of it's like, well, just believe in Jesus. He did it all for us. So now you can do whatever you want. And I know that's going way too far.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more to it. But that's what some people will say. Some people will be like, oh, well, Christianity, they just believe in Jesus and then they can do whatever they want. Again, that's judging it.
Yeah.
Not loving it and seeing it for the truth. So, I'm a believer that the great prophets came to show us that we actually can. We can live by the law, the original law, and we can go back to the state before the fall. That's actually what I received at 3:00 in the morning this morning. What was really going on is like, why am I so interested? Why am I caught it? And it's just like Christ came to correct and show people that we can be forgiven of the original sin. Okay. So that's a lot. There's a lot here. And again, there's a process. There's a process of transmutation. You've heard of alchemy. It's a process of change. There's a process of growth. There's a process of upgrading in our consciousness and having awareness and getting into the heart. Okay. And whenever we transition into something, it's just like, man, it's going to become very, like the universe is displaying what we need in order to breathe and stay in the heart. You're in your heart and everything's great. And then it's just like, oh, I'm judging this thing and this has come up and I'm a dickhead and I drank and I smoked and I got this pain and stuff's going on. You know what I mean? It's all part and parcel to the process. And I think the Christ piece in there, that's the most powerful piece, is bringing it back to this.
This is the thing that's been thrown in my face the last few days. The thing that's kicked me up my ass to make sure I do the things that I said I was going to do was I was operating. My dog's death. I felt like it was this sacrifice that he made, and then I was using that as my motivation. I was using him as my motivation to be the best version of myself. And it caused me the other day to question, why didn't I do it for me?
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Why is it when you're doing it for someone else?
Coaches. This is why coaches are so powerful. Yeah.
I don't know, like, why can't it just be for me?
Yeah.
Have I confused this feeling of selfishness for doing it for me when I guess it's not really, because presenting the best version of myself to the universe is probably the most selfless thing I could do.
Absolutely. And I have this conversation with a lot of people that we need to fill our cup first.
Yeah.
So I get up hours earlier before anybody else because I know there's things that I need to get and go through in order to fill my cup. I need to be selfish. I need to be selfish fill my cup, love myself, become, try to be the best person I possibly can so that my cup is full and then it can pour out on other people. And that's my soul food, is when I can see the magic and people changing and upgrading. And man, in my industry, people heal from cancer. People heal from kids, mothers, brothers, sisters. And when you get those messages back,
and if
pure
you're
soul food.
And if you're not at your best and people have to help you and do their best to try and, I guess, almost motivate you and get you on the right path, they're not focusing on themselves as well. So it's like this contagious thing of like when you're all right, we've got your own interests at heart, then they don't have to worry about you. Then they can focus on them, and then it's like a domino effect.
When you're present with somebody, they feel it.
Yes,
they feel it, and this is probably a universal flaw in every human, that it's like, and I think people flog themselves in order to help others consistently. And it must come from some original fall or sin or belief or something that we're not good enough and we're not worthy.
Yeah.
And so we flog ourselves, but then we want to do everything for everybody else. And it's what we see, when I said coaches, it's like, that's why coaches are so amazing, because people won't just do it for themselves. But if they have a coach and they're paying the coach and the coach is like, hey, do it. And then I have all kinds of clients that are like, oh, I'll go out to eat with them. Like, oh, I can't eat that thing because Clint, my coach will be upset.
Yeah.
And, he's so full on. He wants to see every single thing that I eat, every single thing that I'm doing.
And so you can, I guess, utilize that way of thinking to go, well, if I have a coach or I have someone that I'm accountable to, which in my head now is my dog, for whatever reason, instead of being me, I should have been accountable to me. Yeah. And that's a hard one because I feel like you can not lie to yourself, but you can go easy on yourself as well. Okay? No, it's okay. Have that one little drink.
That's the little voice
and
inside.
Whatever it is that you've said you don't want to do anymore or don't want to be like anymore. But I think when you're accountable to someone else, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you should be able to just be accountable to you.
I think it's a good thing for starters. So we need somewhere to start. And if we've developed habits and we have these, things that are just like, oh, well, and it becomes easy. It's willpower. And we've never really been taught how to build willpower. And if you don't have willpower, that's the root of all evil. Like, I tell people all the time, it's like, if I set an alarm in the morning, it's like, oh, you know what? I'm motivated. I'm going to set an alarm 4:00 in the morning. It's like, when you're motivated, that energy, when you're inspired, well, how do you show up when that energy's gone? That's what actually matters. It's not the energy of when you're inspired. It's when the energy go away. What do you do then?
Yeah. Okay. I said that to my mate yesterday. It's like, I am unmotivated. I don't want to go do this run. I was like, that's when you've got to do it.
Yeah. So the point is, if I set the alarm, if I wake up, and I always wake up, a lot of people do this 5 minutes before the alarm goes off.
Yeah.
If I wake up before the alarm, or if the alarm actually goes off and I jump up and I start, that's immediately building willpower. I said I was going to do something, I do it. If I don't get up to the alarm, it immediately kills just a little bit of that willpower, and it's a string-on effect. So this is why I think also morning routine is so important, because if I say I'm going to wake up a certain time, I do, but then I get into the routine and I'm actually following the routine. It's like building willpower. It's like, man, look at everything that I've done on my own. And again, in the beginning, it might need to be a coach, because I can't do it on my own. I have to be willing to admit I don't have the willpower. I'm not going to do it unless I'm absolutely held to account.
Yeah.
And if somebody absolutely holds me to account and stands there and watches me, I'll do it, and I'll do it really well. And that's going to take a long time before it becomes ingrained physical, mental, emotional habit and feels good. It's going to hurt for a long time and hurt so much that I just don't want to do it until it feels so good and I'm channeling and I'm downloading and I can't not do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I can do it on my own.
It's I see that with little things I've been implementing in my life. Just little things. At the start, you really have to force yourself.
Yes.
Even something as simple as having like creatine or something in the morning, if I was to have that, or my supplements, or just
the discipline to have the consistency
to do it. Just
yeah.
I'm making a coffee. Fucking do it right now.
This
Like,
thing
it's
feels
right-
really good.
I put them.
Why can't I do that?
I put them right next to my coffee machine on purpose. I'm like, well, it's there. You're an idiot. Just do it.
Put it in the coffee machine, so you have to get it out.
Exactly. So, but yeah, the things that were quite difficult have now become normal. And
Yeah.
so then you can start implementing the other ones that were, if you're trying to chuck it all on you at the same time, eventually you're going to go, it's too much. I can't do it all. Fuck off.
Yeah.
But I think if you just slowly implement these little changes
Yes.
one by one, like like I do TheraBand exercises for my shoulder. That's actually, granted, they've fallen away a little bit, but I need to get back into it. But like by doing them slowly every single day, they became
Rebuild the muscle.
Yeah, exactly. And it's helped my left shoulder, which I've had a few operations on and whatnot, football injuries. So
Yeah.
bloody traumatic ones, those ones dislocated it a lot. But yeah, those sorts of things, I think if you just implement them slowly, bit by bit, they become your normal, and then you don't have to worry about the next one. It's not like you're piling on top of, well, you're not, what's it, like the filling the cup analogy, you're not over the brim. You're not like, you got plenty of
Spilling
room.
over. Yep.
So, but mate, that's been
I think we need like 3 or 4 separate days.
100%.
To focus on the little areas.
I don't know how often you come over to Perth because you're in Bali, is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to come back and maybe have specific subjects.
Yeah.
Just that we try to stay somewhat focused on.
100%.
Because there's so much.
But that's a great little teaser into it.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
pop over to Bali and come visit you and say
great.
good day anyway. But before we finish up, because I know you got your tour at the moment and you're heading all around Australia. So we've got listeners all around Australia, so this is good. Maybe give a shout out as to what you're doing and plug what's going on.
Okay, so we have basically 2 programs on this tour. I talked about the left-hand path, the right-hand path. Becoming a physician, become your own physician, essentially. And then there's this like ancient Egyptian wisdom, empowerment, becoming the warrior. And that's more about like, becoming empowered, the ascension process. So I'm teaching both on days in most cities. We're going to do in the morning. We're going to have longevity. It's all about fasting, all about health, detoxification, become a physician, how to heal yourself, how to identify symptoms and when things show up.
And I wanted to go into it, but you're right. They are all they all have value for their own independent podcasts. So,
Yes.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
the eye, for example, just that
Oh,
sort
man,
of stuff.
like-
I came and watched a whole seminar on it with you. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of open loops here
Yes,
that I'd love to clean up and get very systematic on, but at least we've touched on a few things.
definitely.
So there's longevity tour. If you can come to longevity, it's how to be your own physician, how to identify, your nails, your skin, your eyes, symptoms, and then what to do about it to heal. Basic principles of health, fasting and the magic of that. And then we have the Djedi, which is going to be all about ancient Egyptian, becoming a warrior, becoming empowered, looking at the degrees of consciousness and how to increase in consciousness and grow. And there'll be about 90-minute talks. So I usually do like 3-hour talks, but it's just going to be a shorter, hard-hitting, getting people excited and, into the energy. Most people that come see these, they just feel motivated and excited to like start doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Which is awesome because that can lead into some great new habits. We're going to be in Perth this weekend, so that's the 8th. And then we're going to be in Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Gold Coast.
Yep.
So quite a few cities. You can just look it up, on tylertolman.com. Go check out which one's available. The Djedi won't be in every city, but the longevity will probably be in all those cities. And we pick certain ones like morning and afternoon kind of talk on the weekends. So should be fun.
Perfect, mate. Sensational conversation. Went places I didn't think it would, and it's opened up a lot of little topics that we can do next time you're over. Fucking awesome, mate. Really like
go.
that one. Needed to do that one. I think we were aligned to do that. But
Yes.
I'll just plug my Return to Zero conference. Tickets are on sale now. They're live April 11th at Planet Royale. Only 250 seats available for that one. So I wasn't ballsy enough to go for a bigger theatre. So, but 250 tickets are available. It's going pretty quick. We've got 6 keynote speakers on healing yourself before you can start that journey to self-improvement. So whether that's trauma or health, I got gut health, we got psychedelics, we got chronic illness, we got hypnotherapy, we got breath work, and I can't remember one more area. Holistic health and cancer healing. So all of those spaces covered all in one conference, 3 hours in Perth. So get your tickets now. But thanks so much, mate. I really appreciate you coming on, and cheers for coming.
Blessings. Cheers.
Awesome.